All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today is Thursday, April 27th, 2023. We're welcoming you to a land use meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County. It is an absolutely beautiful day today in Manatee County, and we're going to open today's meeting in our normal fashion. We're going to start out by honoring God, and then we're going to honor our great nation. So, special guest today, our clerk, Vicki Tesmer, is going to lead us in prayer, after which Marine Corps veteran and County Commissioner Jason Bearden is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, if you're able, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day, the opportunity to gather today in chambers, and we ask you to please be with us in these proceedings today as decisions are made that affect all the residents of Manatee County, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, thank you both. We will move to announcements and updates to today's agenda by Denise Greer. Ma'am?
Updates include moving, there were some citizen comments, and those were provided. Advertised public hearings, we moved some to presentations upon request, including items 6 and 10 and 11. We also added item 18 on the discussion of the acting county administrator employment contract for John Mast.
Well, that was quick today. Yeah, and thorough. Appreciate that. So, for multiple reasons, including sort of stability of the organization and sort of ease everyone's minds, after we do citizen comment and future agenda items, I think we'll go ahead and do consent. Then let's go ahead and do item 18 just to get it out of the way. But first we'll start with citizen comments on future agenda items, 30-minute maximum time period allotted for this. Is there anyone who is here to comment on a future agenda item? And just to clarify how we do things, future agenda items are items that are not on today's agenda, but are likely to appear on a future agenda, or you would like them to appear on a future agenda. Items that are on today's agenda, we hold public comment for those items when that item is called and being heard by the board. We will have public comment for that item then. So that's not the time to discuss an item that's on the agenda. This is for stuff that you want to see on a future agenda or will be on a future agenda. We have 5 people who have signed up to speak on future agenda items. Tammy Gotcher, Mark Vandery, Tula Sadiq, Thomas Carter, and Diane Carter. So we'll bring folks up in that order. We'll start with Tammy and Mark.
I'm Tammy Gactor.
Yes, ma'am. So come to the podium. And when you get to the podium, this goes for everyone. When you reach the podium, even though I just called your first and last name, we need you to, for the record, state your first and last name, your county of residence, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
To begin with, I'm not sure if I'm speaking at the correct time. This is my first board meeting.
What item is it you want to speak on?
I'm concerned about possible changes to the wetlands.
That is not on today's agenda. Yeah, so
will be-
this is the correct time. Yes, ma'am.
This is the correct time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
First and last name, county of residence.
Tammy Gactor, Manatee County, Bradenton. Good morning, commissioners. I want to thank you for your time and attention. When we moved to Florida from Illinois, it was with excitement and a new chapter, but also with a good share of trepidation. Aside from college, I'd only lived in a 40-mile radius all my life, and we were leaving a beautiful piece of property we had restored into native prairie grass and levelly tended to for many years. So I knew it was going to be a big change. But it was my husband's turn to live in his nirvana, and his boyhood state of Florida is where he wanted to get back to. So he let me choose which side of the state to live on. I mean, he gave me that. And I chose the Gulf Coast. I chose it because of its friendly people, its beautiful beaches, and its abundant green spaces. We also chose a well-established neighborhood that while the homes were close together, it had this shining gem right across the road from me as a beautiful wetland with nature paths, towering oaks, mangroves, and wildlife. And I thought, at least I have that. At least I have that to enjoy. At least we have that to enjoy. And I never questioned whether that would be changed. I thought it was protected. I thought it was a given. So I was just talking to our longtime maintenance man in the community, and I told him what I was hearing about possible changes to the wetlands. And he became very stoic. He himself, almost 2 decades ago, helped plant all those mangroves. He took the seedlings from fresh water, acclimating them to brackish water, and he was sad. I mean, because with his mundane chores, he knows at least he has that. He has that to go see the manatees, the lush mangroves, everything that has become developed in this last 2 decades. So I would like to implore you as our county commissioners that you consider all of us in this beautiful county and consider why we live here, why we moved here, and what we get to enjoy living in Manatee County, and ask you to not change things that would forever take away things that can't be restored for decades. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sir, first and last name, your county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to address the board on a future agenda item.
Mark Vanderie. I live in Manatee County. I'm talking on behalf of the Waterline Road Preservation Group, and I was wondering, is Commissioner Ball with us today in the ether? Or
I am not. I've not been made aware of her being on a Zoom link at this time. No, sir.
Okay. A couple items I want to point out and ask about on future agenda items. One that we've discussed in the past was the call-in feature. I would like to know how that's coming along. We've noticed that Commissioner Baugh is using her Zoom occasionally, and we would like, as citizens, the same right to be able to call in to access the meetings. The second item is following up on the wetlands issue. I talked with some of the staff, and that was, in fact, a land development code and comp plan amendment that was pending, being worked on by staff. It has since been taken off in March and put on the back burner. I know it's going to come back. And when it does, before it does, I'd like to ask the board to at least have a couple of workshops on that issue. It's a big issue. Wetlands is a big issue, as you know. In fact, I think some of that flooding that we saw with Hurricane Ian that came through last year, a lot of that additional flooding is probably due to the fact that we put so much cement out there across the county, both in Sarasota and Manatee. And the water had no place to get absorbed. So that's very, very important. I know the University of Florida is working with some folks in the developments out east and trying to improve the filtration and water retention and the handling of stormwater with some of the ponds and the drainage ditches, and that's great. We need more buffers, not less. I think right now the county is doing a good thing with having a more substantial buffer than a lot of the other counties, but it needs to be even more and better. Right now, more and better. And the reason why is when they build these developments, they dig sometimes hundreds of drainage ditches and ponds. They sell them as lakes. They're not lakes. They're drainage ditches. Okay, their purpose is to filter out the nutrients so that we don't get these excessive red tide blooms. The study that by UF last year showed that they are only taking care of half of what they're supposed to be taking care of. So that has to be improved. Something has to be done better. Now, I know, Commissioner Ron, you're talking about how important development and getting a handle on development is. I would hope that going forward on future agenda items, you facilitate and give as much support to the rest of the citizens and sustainable development as you are for the special interests of the developers and builders themselves. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Tala Sadiq, followed by Thomas Carter. And, sir, if I've mispronounced your name, I apologize. I'm frequently a victim of that myself.
Good morning. Good morning. Talha Sadiq, Manatee County, District 3. Thank you, sir. I would like to discuss several items that I'd like to see on a future agenda item. Today I'm here leading Speak Out Manatee, a coalition of communities and organizations from across Manatee County, representing the islands, the cities, and the countryside out east. People across the political spectrum, from the young to the young at heart. We need to see the following actions taken from this board today, at future agenda meetings, and in our communities. We need a new comprehensive plan that will protect our agricultural land, our wildlife, and preserves our beautiful countryside. A plan that will promote sustainable growth, protect our watersheds, the sources of our clean drinking water, protect our wetlands, which shield us from the effects of pollutions, storms, and flooding. And we also want to make it clear that we would like to stop seeing the patchwork changes to our land development code, which are disrupting our environment and destroying the character of our communities. Number two, a commitment to transparency and rebuilding trust with this community. Paving over beaches for parking garages, bulldozing the countryside for urban sprawl, waging wars in island cities that we can't win, threats of eminent domain to take away homes, rushing changes to our land development code, late-night updates to county meeting agendas, and promoting the development interests of a few small-time developers over the interests of the many. A lot of us are saying enough is enough. This board has time and time again advanced those interests, but we want to work with all of you. We want to work with you to preserve the heritage and character of what made our county great, and to teach future generations how to keep it great forever. The purpose of this board is to legislate policy to protect the health, welfare, safety, and quality of life of Manatee County residents. We do want this board to succeed. No one's out here to make threats, make personal attacks. We just want to make sure we can work together across the dais, across the aisle. We want to stop the influence of voices whispering in the night, pushing the changes and the interests that are against what this community wants, and I truly feel that what you all would like to see in this community. The way we do that is by working together and supporting one another, making decisions on both sides of the dais that show how we can both give and earn respect. It's a lot of work bringing this many people together. As much as I know you guys like to see me coming up here, I am losing out on quite a bit of vacation time. So let's go after some solutions. Let's start today. Let's start tomorrow. Let's get you guys involved in our communities and our workshops at town halls. For those that do, thank you. For those that I know you have family commitments, you have a lot of things going on, we'd certainly appreciate any minute you can spare to come see us and workshop ideas with us. Thank you very much for your time. Hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you, sir. Captain Carter, first and last name, your county of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board on a future agenda item.
Thomas Carter, Manatee County. We have a slideshow? Okay. The project, stakeholders were never notified about this. Residents were never notified. The project is designed to hide the true meaning of the project. When it was divided into two locations, one, the project board was put down by the mall, and nothing was put up by where they planned to put it. However, the bald eagles are now back in our area, and there's the bald eagle on top. A large roundabout starts at around 1,200 cars per hour. It's almost never acceptable to do a right offset on a roundabout. That'll cause crashes. The right offset alignment is what this project is trying to do. To do your roundabout and to do your volume of vehicles per hour, it's a small sample there. Located at the Creekwood Boulevard and 49th Avenue, it's a proper place to put a roundabout because it has everything to meet the DOT requirements. The alignment to the offset of the right will cause crashes. It is unacceptable per the United States Department of Transportation. The traffic count or the lack of traffic does not allow a roundabout to be built with taxpayer funds. The Mall Management Company of Creekwood Crossing, Lowe's Management, and other businesses and countless citizens are all against it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Diane Carter, would you like to speak, ma'am? Okay. Thank you. So then we're going to open this up to the audience for folks that didn't sign up today, and you can form a line right at the podium. When you reach the podium, please state your first name, last name, county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to address the board on a future agenda item. Sir?
Good morning. Roger Vogt, Manatee County. More than a year ago, this commission said that it would submit an ethics and transparency policy for Board of County Commissioners meetings, and it never happened, and I believe we need it. We, the people, still have to put up with major decisions made at these meetings without adequate notice. A proposal to hire a new temporary county administrator came up without any notice. His contract proposal went on the agenda about 16 hours before the meeting started. This is a meeting about what I guess is probably the highest paid employee in the county. The whole process stinks, to be honest. This board has connections to the Building Industry Association, and it's laughable. Commissioner Ron, former president of the BIA and current life director. Amanda Ballard, husband is government affairs and membership director at the BIA. Vanessa Baugh, husband is on the board of directors at the BIA.
Sir, I think
These are big, important jobs.
I think this item's on the agenda today, sir. This
item?
is an agenda item.
Which
So
item is that?
You're speaking on item number 18, I believe, which is discussion of John Mast.
I'm talking about ethics and transparency in
I
general.
apologize. So it's an agenda item you want to see on. I apologize. And we'll
That-
give you a
that
little
was an
extra.
example.
Yeah, we'll give you a little extra time. Go ahead, sir.
That was an example. I don't need the extra time. I just think that later, these people need to recuse themselves later today because of their connections to the Building Industry Association. They need to recuse themselves when ordinance 2364 comes up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ma'am, please state your first and last name, your county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to address the board on a future agenda item.
Charlene Gow, spelled K-O-W, Manatee County, District 4. I agree with what he said, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the wetlands. And I happen to have a really beautiful editorial that was written by a 15-year-old boy that lives out on Longboat Key. He's in school, so I'm going to read it because I think it's important for people to hear. I'm going to go quickly. His name is Bryce Claypool. He writes, I'm 15 years old and live in Manatee County. More than anything else, I enjoy exploring our local environment, our land, and our waters. I love to watch ospreys dive for fish and spoonbills squabble in mangrove swamps. Sometimes when I talk with longtime residents of our area, they tell me that I should have seen it 50 years ago. Back then, they say there were bountiful fish, few toxic algal blooms, expansive wetlands, and an overall healthier landscape. Why were things better back then? Because there had been less destruction of our natural resources, particularly our wetlands, which filter runoff and limit the pollution that enters the bay. Things have changed significantly since. Reckless and greedy developers have torn out many of our wildlands, resulting in loss of biodiversity, increased storm damage, and polluted waters. Already, our seagrass has declined considerably, our mangroves have all but disappeared, and red tide tortures our communities for unprecedented lengths of time. In recent years, Manatee County's suffering has increased significantly. Developers have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on slandering smart growth politicians and promoting their own candidates, entirely replacing our Board of County Commissioners. Every one of Manatee's current commissioners was elected with the support of developers and their PACs. The developers' goal is to have the new board deregulate development and strip the county of building restrictions. The BOCC has set about repaying the cane-making development industry, determined to refill their campaign coffers before the next election cycle. They have opened the floodgates to environmental destruction, giving their donors anything they request, no matter the damage to our community's future. In March, the BOC approved an exception to let a developer destroy 2,300 acres of land. This caused public outrage but was approved regardless. Unsurprisingly, the developer, Schrader Manatee Ranch Incorporated, had poured thousands of dollars into the chain of PACs which pays for commissioners' campaigns. The commission's current effort to help out developers is even more disturbing. It is not the approval of a single development, but a systemic change that threatens to reverse decades of progress and open the door to unregulated destruction of Manatee's remaining natural lands. This new plan threatens the very future of Manatee County's residents. Manatee County's LDC and comprehensive plan are responsible for laying out regulations and procedures for land use. The job of the LDC and comp plan is to plan land use, protecting communities and resources for the future. This April, the County Commission will vote on changes to the LDC that were requested by the BIA. I'm going to skip through that here, but he details out how these BIA made these changes that are going to try and impede on the wetlands, reducing the amount of setbacks and remove wording. Well, it's in the Bradenton Times, and it's a beautiful opinion, and y'all should read it.
I'm sure it is. Thank you. Ma'am, first and last name, your county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to address the board on a future agenda item.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Vogt. I'm from Lakewood Ranch, and I'm here to talk about water this morning. And I wanted to start off by saying, as we witness the horrors in California with a long drought and its devastating effects, here in Florida, we are very close to the edge of exhausting our own water supply. I'm not here today to say I'm against growth in Manatee County. I am, however, here to say I want responsible growth. Growth that doesn't increase red tide and further kill our fish. Growth that doesn't detract from our county's natural beauty and threaten our tourism industry. Growth that doesn't kill wildlife and rare species that live in Florida and nowhere else in the world. Growth that doesn't destroy our resources for clean water. Growth that doesn't deplete and threaten our water supply. Every decision we make should come down to how much water we are using. We all need water to survive. It is essential to every plant and animal on this earth. If we don't have enough water, we can't grow food, we can't clean ourselves, we can't provide food for nature and grow plants that will clean the air we breathe. As a master gardener, I have learned the critical role of how native plants can drastically reduce the demand for water. As we expand growth in Manatee County, let's not strip away our natural resources. In many instances, native plant clusters just cannot be man-made. These clusters are drought tolerant and hold the soil together. Native plants are a critical component to the environment because they efficiently and effectively save water. I ask you, commissioners, do you really have enough water to support our man-made growth while protecting our natural resources? I have yet to see a plan that does. Changes in words can have drastic implications on how we protect our natural resources. Let's be conscious, commissioners, that a few word changes can do more harm than what can be undone in a lifetime. Thank you.
Ma'am, welcome back.
Carol Feltz, Mayaca. I think it's fitting after the last speaker that this was my words of the day. The nations were angry, and your wrath has come. The time has come for judging the dead and for rewarding your servants, the prophets, and your people who revere your name, both great and small, and for destroying those who destroy the earth. I think we all know where that comes from. In everything, there's a positive. In everything, there is a silver lining. There are many things that change, and there are many things that we adapt to. During our COVID crisis, we did put in a lot of different things to cope because it was something we had not dealt with before. But I think there were a lot of good things that came out of that. Our families were forced to spend more time together. Our parents were finding out what books their children were reading in school. I think they had a greater appreciation spending 8 hours a day with their kids and teaching them. We learned to make do or do without on a lot of things. We learned to depend on our neighbors. We learned what the absence of human touch and connection can do to change our minds and our spirits. And I think that even though we go through some trials and tribulations and, as the word was called last night, shenanigans, from everything that happens, there will be a good and purposeful end. When we had the ability to call in, we had much more participation. And yes, it was a pain, and yeah, we need some restraint. But wow, what a wonderful opportunity. Because my challenge to 400,000 citizens in this county is if you have not attended one county commission meeting, if you have never written one letter, what's the first thing I ask everybody in this county? Where y'all from? Because we know they're from someplace else. How's your mama? And what district do you live in? Who's your county commissioner? And it's had to increase my own personal tolerance for those to understand why did they come here? Because of the way we handled things. And we did a great job of handling those call-in comments. And I think we're hearing from both sides that we enjoyed that, we appreciated that, and we think we need to bring that back for all the good reasons, It is a thing that I believe that Commissioner Cruz zoomed in on a meeting one time. I believe Commissioner Baugh, Commissioner Ron, we've got the technology that allows us all to participate. Yes, I am concerned that Commissioner Baugh is not here today. I hope there's no health problem or issue like that. But as her employer, don't we have a right to know and care for her too?
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, good to see you. First and last name, county of residence.
Good morning. My name is Hunter Jensen, Bradenton, Florida, Manatee County. Yeah, as you guys may know, I represent the Save Bridge Street Hotel project. So Bridge Street is a place of historical significance on Anna Maria Island, and it's been around since the early 1920s. So right now in Manatee County, I think we're being challenged with a sustainability problem that none of us can argue about, right? When you go to the Anna Maria Island on a normal Tuesday morning in the middle of season, we wait in traffic. That's about 2 hours long, right? That roundabout right there at the tip of Bridge Street is already overly congested with people from Longboat Key coming in and people at Bridge Street and just the beach in general. What we want to see is low density on Anna Maria Island. We are right now faced with a sustainability challenge that is unmatched in our county's history. As I've been thinking about it, we go through a little bit of an identity crisis right now, right? We want to be more like Sarasota, we want to be more like St. Petersburg, but we're Manatee County. So let me just talk about some of the benefits of nature and the benefits of ecotourism that's just on the rise with the younger generations. The wetlands actually absorb a lot of the nutrients that will help exacerbate the red tide and will exacerbate the sargassum growth. They absorb the nitrates, the phosphates that come from the runoff from the agriculture lands. The mangroves provide a natural barrier when hurricanes are attracting and coming towards our coast. As we've seen with the decimation of Hurricane Ian, the southwestern coast of Florida was smothered. And now we have a humanitarian crisis down there. I mean, if you've taken a trip to Sanibel Island or Captiva, you know that island's not going to be the same for a very long time. And the protection of mangroves is absolutely important to us here in Manatee County, and it also helps the water clarity. So right now, the benefits of ecotourism is it's going to benefit our economy, it's going to benefit our environment, and it's overall going to benefit our reputation as Manatee County. People come here because they're looking for something else. They're not looking to go to Siesta Key, they're not looking to go to Clearwater, they're looking to see something different. And that's why Anna Maria Island is so valuable to so many people. So I call on you I want to work with you guys. I don't want to be opposing forces. I think it's really important that, at the end of the day, we're one county. If, you guys are in this job because you absolutely love your citizens, you love your constituents, and you love this county in general. We don't argue with that. So what we want to see is we want to see Bridge Street remain historical. We want to see it remain the character that's retained since the 1920s as it's advertised on the front of Bridge Street. And overall, we want to see low density. None of us argue with that. So I hope we can work together, and I hope that we can achieve this common goal that much of us have, and that's the love of our county. And for the 4,500 people that have signed this petition, they're overly concerned about, the future of Anna Maria Island and where they're going to go next. So let's keep it the same as it's been for generations to come, and let's make sure that we're encouraging sustainable growth. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well said. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to address the board on a future agenda item? Ma'am, first and last name, county of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Stacy Jesse, Manatee County, and I live in District 1. And I just want to thank Talhoff, who got all of us together. I mean, this is quite a unique coalition of groups that are working together that all have concerns about what's going on in this county. And like the speaker before me said, we want to work with our county commissioners. There are so many issues, on your plates right now with overdevelopment, with all the people coming into this county. There's traffic concerns. There's all these different interest groups that are trying to get your attention. And we want to find a way to work with you towards the solution that is what's in the best interest of all of Manatee County. And I think, like a lot of people have said, we're asking for better transparency so that we can be part of the process. Some of us, our faces very well because we're here a lot, because we can take the time, but there are so many other people that we speak to on a daily basis or that we come here and we represent that can't come here. We would love to see the option for dial-in comments so that you can more regularly hear from other constituents who often have, incredibly insightful things to tell you about where they live or the information they have on watersheds or wetlands, because these are issues that impact all of us. So we would love to see that come up on a future agenda very soon, the dial-in comments. I think you are working with the attorney to come up with a plan for how to make that manageable. We'd love to see that on the agenda. The other thing, as a representative of East Manatee Preservation and concerned about East County, we'd like to hear what's going on with the revisions to the comprehensive plan. I believe the last I heard, there has been a consultant hired, but we haven't heard a lot from since then. And there's a lot of people, not just that are sitting here, that have a lot of interest in what are we going to do about those watersheds that are out there? How are we going to provide services as we develop out east? What are the plans that are in place to protect our water, to protect our wetlands? And we've seen that the BIA and some of the development lobby and interest groups are getting a say. And so we'd like to see those workshops or something so that other people can have a say, and not just people that don't know things, but we have experts and others that we've retained who would love to be part of this process so that you can hear for the people from Manatee County who are the most affected by these things. And so we just ask, again, dial-in comments, more transparency with when things are placed on the agenda items so that people can comment, and that you allow, give us an update on the comp plan changes that are coming and a way to workshop with us and others that are concerned. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to speak on a future agenda item? Okay, we're well done. We're right at our time limit anyway, so that works out. We'll close citizen comment on future agenda items. And there is not a consent agenda today, so that takes care of that. So then we'll go to item number 18, which, I should read it into the record, discussion on the acting county administrator employment contract for John Mast. And it's listed as an attorney item, so we'll go to Mr. Clegg.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. In deference to you, you had put this on the agenda for today. I don't have anything to report to you other than what I stated to each of you in my phone calls last night, which is that Mr. Mast, in my last conversation with him, has withdrawn himself from consideration for the position of acting county administrator. I don't think it's appropriate for me to state his reasons for that. And out of respect for his privacy, I would let him speak for himself, and that's all I have to present, sir.
Okay.
I am a little concerned. Somebody has left a phone here, and I don't know who's.
Okay.
All right, there you are, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
I placed myself on the board, but really I just wanted to go to Commissioner Bearden. He was tasked with representing the board in the negotiations and get some details on where we end up in this point.
Yeah.
Sir?
You want me to go ahead?
My question is for you.
Okay, yeah, okay.
How we ended up at this point.
Yeah, I mean, so how the negotiations went was I based it off of what we gave Dr. Hopes when he first came on board, having a doctorate degree, and we actually had paid him $199,000 at that time. And so knowing that Mr. Mass had a master's degree, I thought it was the best thing to do was to give him an offer at $195,000 at the time. And so he stated that, he would sleep on it and kind of go from there. But obviously he didn't come back and counter that offer. And so he just decided not to take on the position. So that's where we were at with that.
So you only had the one conversation with him?
Yes, I only had the one conversation with the attorney, and we reached out to him, or he reached back out to us and said that he was not going to be willing to take on the position. And here's my opinion on that. If someone's not willing to counter my offer, he most likely probably doesn't want the position, probably doesn't want to even work, with the situation that is in the board. And I honestly probably don't even blame him at this point in time. If you're not willing to counter an offer, then do you really want to work here? That's the way that I look at it at that point in time. I mean, he had every opportunity to counter that offer. And he could have said, "Hey, you know what? Let's work together. How about $210,000?" Because I think the initial offer was, what was it, attorney? $225,000 was the salary with some other stipulations.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bearden, that is what he requested and what was presented to you last Tuesday.
Correct. So then, after looking at the overall situation and saw that, hey, we paid Scott Hopes when he first came on with a doctoral degree. I thought it was in the best interest of the taxpayers to offer him the $195 and see if he was going to counter that, and he never did. So.
Okay, but you never had a second conversation, though. And my only concern with that is that
The second conversation was
through
just
me.
dialogue?
Sure.
Okay. So the second conversation was with the attorney, and he had called, Mr. Mass had called the attorney and said, "Hey, I'm not going to take the offer." So if there was no counter offer to that, to me, it seems like to me that he doesn't want to take the position.
Okay, I mean, it was a negotiation. Six members of the board wanted this guy as the county administrator, and
I actually voted for that.
I know, and you said that we were losing millions of dollars every day.
Correct.
I heard you say that because Mr. Washington is our administrator.
Correct.
And so I'm just sort of perplexed as to why.
And I can see where the setup.
Why
I
we
can see
couldn't.
where the setup may have. Go ahead.
Well, I have the floor. So I'm just perplexed as to why.
I don't think you have the floor, Mr. Chair.
I do.
I have the floor.
I do. I put my name on, and then
You
you asked
don't
the
have
dialogue.
the floor,
and then you
Mr.
asked the
Chair.
dialogue.
No,
with
you
me.
don't. You don't have the floor.
I do.
No, you
So-
don't. No, you don't. Not in proper procedures. You don't have the chair. I have the. I have the
I
floor.
put my name on the board.
Okay.
All right.
And I wasn't done talking.
And then you
yet.
asked the dialogue to me. Well, go ahead, sir. Answer the question.
So I could see where where this setup was going to be orchestrated in this sense. Because why would you tell me to do the negotiations if we had a disagreement on things, right? So that's where I'm at with it. But, that being said, it just kind of shows the true colors of who you truly are. And you know what? I'm going to allow the public to know that. So don't sit here and tell me that there was no negotiations when everybody had the opportunity to talk. And you know what? The problem with this is that you could have stated something in a negotiation and you had the opportunity to talk to him one-on-one in regards to position this in a certain way. So that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, thank you, sir. So 6 members of the board voted that we wanted to bring in John Mast. You made the motion, and I voted for it, to remove me from negotiating the deal. It seemed to be the will of the board, and it was, because it was unanimous. Then we decided that you should represent the board in the negotiation, and you voted for that, to be clear, and took that job on. And in that same meeting, you said that we were losing millions of dollars every day with the current leadership. And now you've come back or we've come back empty-handed after you only had one conversation. That's what
I
that's where I'm
stated that
confused.
we're losing millions of dollars every day based on the structure that we currently have in the organization, that we needed some reorganization in the way that our management process was.
Sure. And then somehow, in the end here, this is my fault, and I've shown my true colors by voting with you to have you do the negotiation.
I took on that to do the negotiations because I wanted to see how this whole thing was going to be played out. And I didn't, and I honestly thought about not taking it on, but I did. So you were the one that said, hey, I want to make a motion to make Bearden the guy that negotiates. I came in, I gave the gentleman an offer. He did not counter that offer. That just tells me that he doesn't want the position. If you're not willing to counter the offer, you're not willing to take on the position. He wasn't even willing to say, hey, you know what, I can't take that. Let's go at 215. Let's go at 220. You know, these are my terms, and we could have worked off of that. However, he wasn't willing to take those terms. He wasn't willing to even come back with a counter offer on that. So I was basing my decision based on what you and the board at that time had offered Dr. Hopes, which was $199,000. And I thought that was a fair offer, and I was waiting for him to counter it, and he wasn't even willing to counter that. So either something's happened behind the scenes on that deal, or, you know, to maybe try to paint the picture, but I'm going to paint it how it really was right now.
Okay, so you just made the statement that you didn't take the task to go negotiate the deal to, in good faith, represent the board. You said you decided to accept that and to go negotiate the deal to see what was really going on.
No,
so you didn't enter it in good faith.
Everybody sees how these words are twisted.
No, those are your words, sir.
Let me tell you, I mean,
your words.
I mean, the thing behind it was you guys sent me there to represent the board, i.e. the taxpayers, in the best interest of the county. And that's what I did. I gave him an offer of $195,000. He did not counter that offer. There's probably a reason why he didn't counter that offer. Who knows? But I can tell you this, if you're not willing to counter an offer, then you probably don't want the job bad enough. That's all I got to say about that.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Satcher, you're on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I don't see the controversy here. I mean, different levels of business experience and dealings from each board member, but it is pretty well recognized that if you are in negotiations with someone and they don't make a counteroffer, there's generally going to be a reason. All of our phones work both ways. So, I mean, I made a phone call and haven't gotten a phone call back because I was going to proffer a compromise today that might lower the responsibilities and not necessarily even be a position here, but maybe bring them on as some type of consultant as we go through the process of looking at the comp plan. Because that's where I feel like, looking at the experience and the background of Mr. Mass, that's where I can see a lot of value there. And so I thought, I'd be bringing that today, but anyway, and that's something, maybe not today, maybe that could come up in the future, but I just don't see where there should be any controversy about that. I think it's completely reasonable. I think it's okay to go forward with different ways of doing things, different way of making negotiations, and different people being involved. We're kind of on a string. I mean, we've had a few different employees and people in positions where most of the negotiations was done not by Commissioner Bearden. And so I think maybe changing things up is a reasonable way to go forward. So attacking him for that seems interesting and doesn't seem wise. Also, I don't see the benefit. I've been asked so many times on this board to not cause any type of division or any type of strife, just to go along with what's being offered, because that's where things should go and that's where people are, and just go along. And how many times we've been asked that, put on a united front for the people at home, and yet here, what's the benefit of this argument in front of people? I don't see one. Obviously, if he wanted to make a counteroffer, Mr. Mast is a businessman. He's got that background, and he could do that if he wished to. And maybe he will in the future. Who knows? But I don't see what we're arguing about. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. I did want to clear one thing up. I did not make the motion to appoint Commissioner Bearden as the representative. I did second the motion, but Commissioner Cruz made that motion. And my concern, Commissioner Satcher, regarding controversy is that there has been controversy created, right? I mean, in one day last week, a motion was made to remove Mr. Washington as the county administrator. A motion was made to remove the chair. Now the chair is back. Now Mr. Washington is back and safe. But we've created all this disruption within this organization unnecessarily, be it with citizens, taxpayers, and then staff and high-level administration. Commissioner Bearden went and talked to some staff and told them to not worry about the politics that are played on the dais, but it's hard for them to ignore that when we're impulsively trying to make major leadership changes in their organization, and when statements are made like we need to completely reorganize the government. That impacts folks who work here, in which we have almost 2,000 people who work here, and they feed their families. They provide for themselves with their income and their jobs that they have with this county. And so to unnecessarily create all that instability, maybe it wasn't impulsive, maybe I'm wrong on that, but with what seemed impulsive, I think that's careless, and I think that it is controversial, sir. So with all due respect. Commissioner Satcher, you're on the board.
I'll defer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. And I do try to be a team player, sir, to your statement on that. You're right. We should try to be team players. Commissioner Bearden.
My only thing is that the way that we have done it hasn't worked in the last 2.5 years. I mean, under your watch, we've gone through how many county administrators? And so obviously, 2.5 years, was it 2.5 years that we've gone through 5, or 3 years that we've gone through 5, attorney?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bearden, we go back to Sherry Courier.
Okay.
There's been acting administrators, but there's only been 2 permanent administrators, Ms. Courier and Mr. Hopes. But
correct. So, but we've had a lot of changes.
Transitions.
We've had a lot of changes that has affected a lot of people's lives. So, when I come on here and I stand for a little bit of change, there's a reason for that, because what we've done hasn't worked under certain leadership. And so that's the reason why I requested a change. And because it is people. And yes, I did talk to every single department and let them know that don't allow the politics to affect your daily way that you do things. Because even in the military, I had 2 presidents. One I agreed with, the other one I didn't. But we still had a mission to accomplish. And that's the message that I wanted to send throughout the organization at that time. Because it shouldn't. They still have a mission that they have to accomplish, and it's to the citizens of this amazing county. So if at any time I see that what we're doing is not working, I would like to see a change in the way maybe our structure was developed by somebody who you brought on board. You brought that person on board that after having discussions, maybe we shouldn't have had the structure in the county the way that it was. So, maybe that it's good to have change. Maybe it's good to change things up. Because obviously what's been happening has not been working. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. And I'll just disagree about the changes that we made. I think that we put the county in a better place, and my concern is that these sudden, drastic disruptions will ultimately lead to service disruptions to taxpayers. Cruz and Satcher is the speaking order. Commissioner Cruz.
I'm not going to say I'm unhappy about this because it was disruptive from day one. And I said from day one, this had nothing to do with the person being proposed. It had to do with the nature of what we were doing in its entirety. And I'm listening to the two of you go on. We're just county commissioners here. We have two jobs. One is to conduct the business of this county, and two, and more importantly, is to make sure staff has the resources they need so they can do their job effectively. This conversation accomplishes neither of those things. This is a waste of our time. It's a waste of staff's time. It's a waste of the citizens' time bickering over this. You can't say on one hand, we got to watch out for staff. All these changes, the 5 people we've had and, over the 2.5 years is disruptive, so we need to make a change. Like that's counterintuitive to what you're even saying. We need stability. We have stability. We have a great interim right now, and you may disagree. You may have some issues. I hope you take the time to go and correct those issues in the near term, because it is a near term. We all know we're all seeking that stability. And that stability is going to come from a national search, bring somebody in, God willing, for their own sanity, someone who doesn't live in Manatee County and has never heard of this place, so that they can come in fresh and clean without any influences to run this government and stabilize things. That's what we're trying to do. And when that person comes in, they'll assess this organization. If we find the right, smart person, they'll be able to structure this organization in a way that's productive for everybody. At no point in time would I have ever done anything but like filibuster endlessly up here if the intent was to bring an interim in for 60, 90 days to meaningfully change this government. That's not the role of a 90-day interim administrator to dismantle a government and then walk out the back door and put somebody else in. That's just adding to the problem of finding a long-term, permanent county administrator. So, let's just take a step back and say, okay, this was an unfortunate 9 to 10 days, but the 9 to 10 days are past. We've got the same chair. We've got the same administrator. We've got the same search. Let's just move on. We're bickering over the past. We're bickering over things that just are not being productive for us and for anybody else. So, let's get behind the current interim county administrator, because that's who you have. Let's get behind the staff and the structure in which they're set up, because that's what you have. And you can make the best of it and actively and proactively look to find that county administrator that you want, that's going to have your mindset, and we all move on, where our current county administrator is not watching this on video, listening to people complain about millions of dollars lost or bad structure. He wasn't put in either of those positions. I guarantee you there's nothing Mr. Washington's done in 90 days that's caused us to begin losing millions of dollars per day. He's doing this effectively out of the goodness. He doesn't even want to do this job. He loves his old job. He works in community neighborhood services and veteran affairs. He's doing this because he, and we all agreed, up on the 5th floor, he would create the most stability for this staff. And whether you agree or not, I believe he has, we're dismantling what he's trying to do. Can we just acknowledge he's our interim county administrator? We're going to proactively and efficiently and quickly look for a permanent county administrator that the 7 of us can all agree upon, and move on with county business, because that's what we're supposed to be here for. This isn't being productive. You guys are just going to yell at each other for the next 45 minutes, and there's no right or wrong answer. You have opinions. You're allowed to have opinions. We all have opinions. But let's get behind the staff and get behind the current administrator that we have to move this place forward. That's just my request. This isn't going to be productive. You're making things worse, not better at this point in time.
Well said, sir. Thank you. Satcher, Ballard, and Bearden. Commissioner Satcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I've deliberately, as you've seen, even when my name was on the board, and I've not gone back through certain things deliberately because I don't see the fruit in it. I don't see the gold at the end of this fight. However, I do think that, in fairness to Commissioner Bearden, it is important that we do at least recognize and realize that his motion was to change chairs. The chair, which theoretically, supposedly, a ceremonial position, to where if we're all going to one place, you can call someone and say, hey, where do you want to go to dinner? And you don't have to make 7 phone calls about where we're going to have dinner while we're in Tallahassee. That was his motion. He never made a motion to change the acting administrator. He did not make that motion. I don't even know that he seconded that motion. That was brought up by someone else on this board, and I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. I'm just saying it's interesting to have the conversation of why are you trying to change administrators when you didn't even make that motion. Your motion was to change chairs, and it seems like, I don't know, maybe the point of this whole conversation is to make sure you don't make any drastic moves in the future along those lines. Could be something like that going on. Surely not. But regardless, I think that it is important. We don't have any revisionist history here. Commissioner Bearden didn't make that motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Ballard.
So I think that Commissioner Cruz said things very well. I think it's time to move forward, to stand behind the interim administrator that we have, move forward with our national search, and get our permanent administrator in place. But for now, we need continuity, we need unity, and it's time to stop rehashing the past 10 days and just move forward for the good of the county, for the good of the employees, for the good of the taxpayers.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Commissioner Bearden.
Yes, thank you. You know, I can see one thing that's happened in the last, what is it, has it been 10 days since all this has happened? Man, am I not getting a lot of emails? Am I not getting a lot of people letting me know what's going on in the county? So sometimes you have to do drastic things to get the results that you want. And you know what? When it comes to the county administrator, now he all knows what each of us want and need. And, we got the results that we wanted. So I'm with you, Commissioner Ballard, Commissioner Cruz. I think we're now in a position where we can get this county where we need to get it and to move it in the direction where we want to move it. So, and I think that speaks for all 7 of us on this dais. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well said, commissioners. Little disagreement is good every now and again. Mr. County Attorney, did you need to say anything before we move on?
I do want to make one statement, Mr. Chairman. And
are you on the board?
I'll let Commissioner Ron
let's
go
let the last
first.
commissioner speak. I
I'd like to go
apologize.
last.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was the one that brought the motion forward to put John Mast as the acting county administrator. Would have thought that when we did hire an administrator after our national search, which is going to probably take some time to do, and they're going to happen in 90 days. I mean, the school board just got their 12 recommendations from their search company. We just got basically the outline of what our search company is looking for based on the conversations they had with us. So I do believe Commissioner Cruz had a lot of great points. He did. But to bring Mr. Mast forward was what I thought would be best for this county at the juncture we're at right now. To have some good leadership, nothing against Lee Washington. He's a great guy. I think, like Commissioner Cruz said, he'd be happier being on the 5th floor, running his veteran services and community services. When you step up, he was a good Marine. The country called. He stepped up and took the job, even if he didn't want to do it probably in his heart. But that's all right. We get that. It happens sometimes. But what does hurt is the continued lack of no unity up here. We have an opportunity. All 7 of us are up here because the citizens believed in what we said when we were running for office. We do believe in supporting our team down here. We have great staff here. We have great deputy county administrators. We need 2 more. Now, if we're going to wait for the new administrator to hire those, it'll probably be sometime next year before we see any deputy county administrators stepping up because of the search we're going to have to do. But what I would like to do is, say that we thought what we were doing was best for the county. John Mass had the resume to do it. Contrary to what everybody's saying about relationships or whatever, he did have the resume to do it. And I think from this point forward, we just need to move on. Work as a team, come back as a team, get the business done in this county. There's a lot of heavy lifting to do over the next year between the budget coming up, as Commissioner Cruz has mentioned several times. We have the comp plan that is going to be redone coming up. That's about an 18-month to 2-year process if you see it. But even more, what I want from Manatee County is a vision of where we're heading, where we're going to be in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when I'm no longer around. Hopefully I'll be in heaven, but probably not. But, well, I don't know. I'll need your prayers, brother. But I mean, Commissioner Satcher's prayers right now, believe me. But I think that we need, for the citizens to see that, we do a lot of work for you guys. We have 415,000 bosses, not just 1, not just 2, and all 415,000 bosses have a different opinion on how this county should be ran. Every one of you do have a different idea. So we do the best we can in hearing your thoughts. We open our doors when you want a meeting. I'll sit down with anybody. I don't care if we're on the opposing side of anything. I'll sit down with you and talk about it. But what we need to do is to come back together, lead this county, show the citizens who we really are and what they elected, and let's move forward. Mr. Chair, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And Commissioner Bearden, you're on the board next, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with you, Commissioner Ron. As far as where we need to keep moving forward, and we definitely got a lot of things, a lot of different changes that are happening in this county, expecting, 500,000 people coming in the next 7 years, or that's where our population is going to be. So I'm good. I mean, sometimes up here we're going to have disagreements, right? You want us to have disagreements. That's why we have checks and balances. But it's nothing personal up here. It's just that we have disagreements, and we just keep moving forward, moving this county forward. So I appreciate everybody's work, because I know everybody on this dais is working very, very hard for their districts, for the people, and it's an honor to be serving with all 7 of you, or all 6 of you on this dais. It really is. Although we may have disagreements, I look at the end of the day and I see, the people elected, everybody, and everybody has their different opinions and the way that they look at things in a different matter. And, each district represents, certain people, whether you're East County, West County, wherever you're at. But at the end of the day, we want to do what's best for the county, for everybody. And I just appreciate everybody that's up here, because it is a lot of work. And, it's just an honor. It's an honor to serve with everybody. So.
Hear, hear. Mr. Clegg, did you want to wrap this? Oh, wait, Commissioner Commissioner Satcher.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Clegg. You'll be done by lunch, we promise.
And this is nowhere, near as exalted as some of this conversation. But for the public, moving forward, realize my background is in ministry, right? I've consulted with small businesses and helped them to become medium businesses as well, but my main background is in ministry. Commissioner Bearden, his background mostly is in, obviously, the military, in the Marines, and then 100% really in business, from what I know of his history, and there's 5 others, right? But a big part of our role here as commissioners does involve, even if it's not your background for 20 years, it does involve planning, and it does involve roads and comp plans, and this is a land use meeting. Half of our meetings are just about whether or not a building can be 20 foot from the road or 25 feet from the road or 15 feet from the road. It's a big part of what we do, and whether or not that road should be paid for by the county or private, et cetera. It's a big part of the role that's involved with this. So we should not be surprised as we move forward if there are people in the building industry that are concerned with this process, that want to be involved with this process. Do we have to have other voices coming from the outside and from people here in the county? Should we provide those as commissioners? Absolutely. But it is not fair to every time we bring someone. I mean, some of the former commissioners were literally planners. That's what they had done. So it's not going to be fair as we move forward in this process in the next couple of years to every time someone has a connection to the building industry to just knee-jerk, that's horrible, people are corrupt and they're blah, blah, blah. Come on, it's if you go to the legislature in Tallahassee and you look at all those legislators, you're going to be looking at a whole lot of lawyers. Not all lawyers, but a lot of lawyers. And part of the reason is because one of their main roles there is to make laws in Tallahassee. So, it is what it is. Part of what we do here has to do with that. And it's not, my background, but hopefully, try to be a quick learner and we move on. So I just want to make that clear moving forward. And I think that maybe that'll put us on a better position every time someone goes on internet blog and says corruption, corruption, corruption. What it does is it cheapens when there actually is some of that going on. How are we supposed to recognize and point that out if we're calling every time we sit down with someone, to be wrong or against our rules moving forward? So I hope that was clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's a really valid point at the end, especially people scream corruption every time they disagree with politics or a decision, and it does water it down. Mr. County Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, I only have one statement I'd like to make to the board because I know how sometimes on the outside people can listen to these discussions and project maybe their own ideas or interpretations onto things. And I want to make it clear for the record that in the conversations that we had with Mr. Mast, it is my view as your counsel, and I represent the whole board, all 7 of you, even when you disagree with each other, that he did make a very legitimate and good faith effort to negotiate something that would be acceptable to both sides, but for business reasons that are driven by the issues for both sides, it just didn't work out. I do want to make sure that's clear. I do feel it was a good faith discussion. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to take the suggestion of the board and move on. So, item number 1 on today's agenda, Denise Greer, if you please read item number 1 into the record.
Under presentations upon request, item number 1, LDCT 2303, ordinance 23-09, established the Recreation Open Space Zoning District, initiated Land Development Code text amendment. And for staff, we have Charles Andrews.
Good morning,
Mr. Andrews, and
Hi,
I'll just
Charles.
tell the board we're down to 6, so only one of you can go to the bathroom at a time at this point. So we're down to 5. So if someone steps out to use the restroom, no one else can leave, or he's stepping out. Yes. So I need got to have quorum. Mr. Andrews.
Yes, sir.
This is a presentation upon request.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone who would like a presentation on item number 1? Yeah, it is for adoption. We've heard it. Obviously, we've heard it once. Okay. So hearing no one, then we'll open item number 1 up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on item number 1 on today's agenda? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close public comment. We're ready to entertain motion. Oh, Commissioner Satcher is on the board. And I have a hand up for public comment. Okay, come on. Yes. No, that's fine, Carol. Come on down. Sure. Yeah. So I will reopen public comment. And you know the routine, ma'am.
Thank you, Carol Feltz, Myakka City. Establishing a recreation open space zoning district, county initiated. What we'd like to know is how we've asked for different amounts of input into special districting, special zoning, and things like this. And this is a recreation open space zoning, which that makes me happy because recreation, we all like recreation and we all like open spaces. But I think in background, and that's why I'm appreciative of having presentation on these items, is what was the origination of, or the necessity of us making a land development code text amendment. We've been talking about that we're hiring a consultant and we're going to be looking at this big review as a big picture and a process that takes, as you said, a year to 2 years to do it. And now we are looking at changes that we're making today. So I would appreciate if, and it's very difficult to kind of understand this, even though we're very appreciative of it being on the agenda with the background information. But I think what my question is, what justifies or what was the identified need to create this recreation open space zoning district? And just in total for all of our meetings at this point, if we're going to be completely reevaluating our land development code and comp plan, I think we need to look at these things as far as why are we doing that and why are we doing it now, that this may be something that will be undone or outdone or whatever when we get to the full encompassing review of that item. So I guess my question is, what was the impetus for us to say we need a recreation open space zoning district and that the county initiated that text amendment? Because I would imagine, and please educate us if we're wrong, that county initiated text amendments would be from something that was needed, desired, or requested from the public and your citizens. And of course we like open space and recreation. But I think if we would be provided a little bit of background on not only how that's done, but let's say that we have an idea for we've talked about some things, tiny house zoning districts, things like that. How does a bill become a law? How did this get there? And it's a good thing if it's good for the county. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Commissioner Statcher removes himself from the board. Commissioner Cruz is on the board. Sir.
Yeah, two things about what was just said. Well, one about what was said and one kind of about this. What I agree with you. I actually had conversation with staff. I'm not a big fan of changing comp plans and LDCs when we're already starting a process. I'd rather people who want changes have to suffer along with everyone else waiting 18 months. It would hopefully push things along and people would help move that. That said, some things are either small or beneficial in nature, or they're just clarifying or cleanup points that don't really affect this. I think this one's great. That this was from staff. There has been a number of conversations recently. You asked for examples, at least the examples in my mind, because you could still do it, but it had to be planned development, so it's much more expensive. Just think recently, I hesitant because I don't know where we stand on any kind of lawsuits. There's one up on State Road 64 in front of a nice subdivision that a commissioner may live in. That someone wanted to rezone for retail. I mean, the argument was, is that open space or not? There was no zoning. There's one down closer to where on 70. Having zoning of this nature that allows for dedicated open space and recreation, I think is beneficial to the long-term planning of Manatee County. This is one of those instances where it's not breaking anything. It's, in my mind, fixing and clarifying things for the benefit. So, I'm going to try to stay firm with hey, let's not do much until we fix the whole comp plan. There are some things that are very innocent in nature, beneficial, very quick to do, and this is one of them.
Thank you, sir. All right, no one else is on the board for discussion. We have a motion to approve item number 1 by Commissioner Cruz. It has been seconded by Commissioner Satcher. We've held public comment. We can cast our votes now. We can cast our votes now. You made the motion, George. Come on. All right. So it passes unanimously, Madam Clerk, by a vote of 5-0. If METV, I was told Commissioner Ron was going to join by Zoom eventually, so when he does, if you just let me know when that happens. Move on to item number 2. Denise.
Item number 2, LDCT 2307, Ordinance 35-65, County Initiated Land Development Code Text Amendment, Vehicle Use Area Landscaping, and Bill O'Shea is here for staff.
Presentation upon request. Would anyone like a presentation on item number 2?
I don't want a presentation. I just want to kind of explain some rationale here.
You would like to, or you would like Mr. O'Shea to do that?
I can do it.
Okay. Mr. O'Shea, you take the day off. Commissioner Cruz, the floor is yours.
Don't get ahead of yourself. There's some fun stuff later. No, I just want to explain it because obviously people are watching these things pretty closely. So I think even if we're not going to do a presentation, I at least want to give people the benefit of a quick thought process. This is basically saying right now, if you build a parking lot over 1,000 square feet, you have to put landscaping in there. Typical landscape medians and islands that we have are like 360 square feet or some ridiculous thing. They're pretty large. If you look at the average, and believe me, I did way too much research on average parking sizes for this. You use about 250 to 350 square feet per spot, including the drive area. So a 1,000-foot parking lot is like 4 parking spaces. So even expanding this to 2,000, which is like the footprint of an average size house, is still only going to get you about 8 parking spots. Within our code, it basically says you can put 10 parking spots between landscaping. So if anything, this 1,000 square feet was kind of, I think, just more of a typo and a mistake. You can't really put a landscaped island into 1,000 square feet. It takes up about 40% of the space and loses parking. It just doesn't make logical sense. So if this would have come back at 5,000 or 10,000 square feet, we would have gotten into the 10-spot thing. Different story. This seems like an innocent cleanup. You're literally talking about parking lots that can hold like 8 cars, where we're not going to require them to take 1 to 2 of those spots to put an island in the middle. It just didn't make sense to me. That's why I have no problem with this.
I think we all kind of agree, had the same briefing, and agree with you on that one, sir. No one else is on the board for comment. We'll open this up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on item number 2 on today's agenda? Seeing no one. Seeing someone. Yeah, why don't you sit in the front row?
Okay, here's another one. This is great. But I did ask a question.
You introduce yourself for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Carol Feltz, my Access City. Okay, excellent. We're always good about this. Again, this is increasing per impervious surfaces, correct? A little bit, right? Right? It's increasing impervious surfaces. Okay, second thing is we asked, where did these things come from? And maybe you could do a little bit of an explanation on how development code changes, again, are initiated, because we have a big one coming up and we're making little chips and everything at it at minor and maybe small little things. We've seen cleanup of Scribner's errors and things like that. One thing to mention, if we are increasing pervious surfaces, we need more parking spaces. We need that kind of thing. A thing about Florida living is that where do we go to park our cars? In the shadiest space. So I would say with every increase in pervious surface, because of your stormwater issues, we have to think about shade and things like that too. So little piece of the puzzle there. We still want to know how these things come up. Was somebody standing around somewhere and they said, we could fit 5 more cars in this parking lot if we didn't have this little landscaping island over here. But on the other hand, that's again increasing pervious surfaces, which becomes a stormwater issue, and your greenage, which puts oxygen into the air and provides shade on your impervious surfaces when you park your car there. So first, we'd like to know, again, if you can address how does this stuff happen so that if we want to be a part of the review of the land development code and the comprehensive plan, we know a little bit more about how all this works. But thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Please sit up front. We've reserved the front row for you. Just for you. I know. That's why I'm asking you to sit up front. All right. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to speak for public comment? Okay. Seeing no one, we're going to close public comment. And Commissioner Cruz is on the board. Sir.
Here's why it doesn't increase impervious surface. We have parking ratios. I hate parking ratios, but we have them. So you have to build 4 spots per 1,000 square feet of retail and things like that. You're going to build the same amount of parking spaces. We require them. So even if you put 360 square feet of landscaping smack in the middle of asphalt, you're just going to extend the asphalt 360 square feet on the edges. It's going to result in the same amount of covered space because we require minimum parking. Nobody builds more parking than they need to. It's cost prohibitive. They always come try to get less parking. So you're not actually affecting the pervious area. You're just affecting where that is located, and it's just going to expand on the outside of the parking lot, not in the middle.
Thank you, sir. We'll entertain motions at this time. We've held public comment. There's no one on the board for discussion. Motion by Commissioner Ballard to approve, seconded by Van Ostenbridge. We can cast our votes now. Commissioner Ron, I'm told you're on Zoom. How do you vote, sir? Commissioner Ron, are you on Zoom? Okay, Madam Clerk, it passes unanimously by a vote of 5-0. We'll move on to item number 3. Ms. Greer.
Item number 3, also on presentations upon request, LDC T 2212, ordinance 23-63. Formerly known as 22-68, is a county-initiated text development amendment for amenity centers. And again, Bill O'Shea is here for staff.
Okay, so we have Mr. O'Shea for presentation. Would anyone like to request a presentation on the amenity center item? Okay, hearing no one, we'll open it to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on item number 3? Seeing no one, we're closing public comment. And we'll entertain motions at this time.
No action.
Just want to remind you,
no
there's
action.
no
That's right.
action.
This is the first reading of this one. I apologize.
reading.
Okay, so we take no action on item number 3. We're going to move on to item number 4.
Item number 4 is LDCT 2304, ordinance 23-61. It is also a county-initiated land development code text amendment regarding resort cottages, and Bill O'Shea is here for staff.
This is also the first reading, Mr. Chair.
So would anyone like a presentation by Mr. O'Shea?
We don't need a full, I think these things are cool, but I mean, this is one of the ones people have asked me about to kind of explain what they are, so it probably wouldn't hurt even if he just wants to give a
Mr. O'Shea,
60-second overview of what a resort cottage is.
Could you please give us the cliff notes on resort cottages, sir?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Bill O'Shea with the Comprehensive Planning Section of Development Services. We have had a couple requests for a new type of use. There's golf courses out there that are called stay and play, where you have amenities on site that would allow you to stay on the golf course. It provides, meals, everything self-contained. So we're considering allowing resort cottages as an accessory use to golf courses or any type of club that could offer amenities, like perhaps a hunting club. The number of bedrooms, well, a cottage is comprised of a number of bedrooms. And within the cottage, there's common areas. There's not a full kitchen, but kitchen facilities. And then each person has their own bedroom. So the cottage itself could range from 2 bedrooms up to a 12-bedroom maximum. You could have a group of friends, if you had a 6-room cottage, get together and have that to yourself, if that is what you want. So that's up to the developer, however they want to slice and dice it. But the maximum entitlement would be for 1 bedroom per 5 acres of open space. And if it's a mixed-use development, you cannot include the open space in the commercial or the residential portions. It requires that there is no secondary access or direct access onto a right-of-way. You have to share the access with the golf course or club. It requires it to be set up somewhat like a golf course country club, in which it has food preparation facilities and other amenities for the guests to use while they're on the site. It requires that the guests use the parking adjacent to the clubhouse. So if they can from that point either walk to their unit or perhaps use a golf cart to get to their unit. It requires stabilized access for fire and emergency purposes. And let's see if I missed anything else. Well, it does add 2 definitions of country club and resort cottage to section 200. And then 51119 has all of the standards and limitations. So that is it in a nutshell. It does provide for setbacks and bulk and dimensional requirements. Since it is considered an accessory use, the ones that are in the tables would not apply. This type of use is only available in the ag, rural, future land use category with limited number of zoning districts. So it would be like in agriculture, in PDGC, where are those other ones? PDR, PDA, and PDMU zoning districts. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Cruz is on the board, sir.
I have a question. Are these going to be treated as short-term rental hospitality relative to collecting taxes on them and regulating them like you would a typical, say, Airbnb or something like that?
I'm not really sure how that will work. It's going to be up to, we don't have any criteria in the land development code that addresses the business aspect. We did try to limit it to certain, we had more limitations, but the county attorney advised that we really can't get into the business aspect of the operation, so we had removed some of those. I would guess it would operate similarly to a hotel or an Airbnb, but I can't say for sure.
Sir, do you have some information on that? Like how these will be treated?
My only advice was to the staff was that we cannot regulate the duration or frequency of the rentals under the preemption statute.
Is it a decision by of Ken Burton, the tax collector?
Yes, I have no idea how they're going to be taxed. I don't know.
Okay, so we don't know if these will be treated more like an Airbnb or treated like a...
I think you should call Ken and tell him.
All right.
We should collect bed tax on those suckers. Commissioner Bearden.
If this is essentially set up, let's just say if somebody wanted to have like a resort style type of obviously development and it was only offering it to members, then it would probably be taxed through the membership, I would assume, right? If that's your, yeah.
Well, here's the I'm sorry, I'm back on the board. I'm not trying to interrupt. Here's the problem with that. Everyone knows how to play those games. I saw it said it's only for members. You're going to have a ton of people flying in here with $1 memberships. That's how it works. You have cottage memberships, and you pay $1. Now you're a member. Congratulations. Now you get to use this cottage. That's how it works. That's how it works out at ski resorts. That's how it works down in South Florida. You sell nominal memberships that are very restrictive on what you can use with the membership, but it allows you to rent the cottage. The problem is it doesn't seem like we're, and again, I love this concept. I think it's cool. I'm not fighting the concept. I just want to make sure it's structured properly because otherwise people start using it before we structure it right, and then we're kind of stuck. The problem is we're not really setting a limit to how many they can build. We're, in theory, saying they can build fairly large ones. It's out on a golf course. It's not really bothering. It's not in the middle of a subdivision per se, and that doesn't bother me. But you could effectively create a hotel and skirt the entire regulations and taxes of a hotel because you can build a ton of these. What did you say? 12 bedrooms or something was the max?
Right, but you would be limited to.
You could build like 10 of those right next to each other, right on the fairway. Next thing you know, you got a 120-bedroom hotel sitting on a fairway with no taxes, no regulation. You basically created a whole nother industry. I mean, that's literally what I'm going to do with my life if this goes through like that. It's true, though. I mean, if we're going to do something as unique as this, which I don't disagree with, I think it's a cool concept, we really need to make sure before this comes back we have a better handle on how we're going to handle these, because this could be, one, meaningful to the hotels in the area. I mean, there's a lot of hotels that cater to, especially some of these nicer hotels that cater to these golf outings, and a bunch of guys or corporations come down and they stay in hotels, and it's revenue for our county, it's revenue for the hotel. We're allowing people to create competing hospitality without having to have the burdens of the regulations and the taxes associated with it. These need to be structured better, but I am on board with the concept.
All right, thank you, sir. Anything further? All right, this is a first reading, and I think we've executed it well. Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. We'll move on then to item number 5. Denise Greer?
Item number 5.
Oh, I didn't do public comment. I apologize, Denise. We're going to open this item up to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to come forward to speak on item number 4 on today's agenda? Item number 4 on today's agenda. First and last name, county of residence.
Stacy Jesse, Manatee County. I'm not opposed to the concept, but I did have a question about the definition of resort cottage. It says on the agenda, resort cottage shall mean temporary living and sleeping quarters that are accessory to a country club for the exclusive use of its members, and at a minimum includes a main building that offers full food services such as a restaurant. So to me, this does sound like it could be a hotel, it could be big, and again, I'm up here representing East Manatee Preservation, and so I guess I look at a change like this and wonder, did we just create a way to build hotels out east, past the FDAB, past the utility service area, but without having a plan for the infrastructure? If we start having these golf resorts, which, my husband would kick me for speaking against, but we don't have the infrastructure planned for it, how is that going to work? And so really, I'd rather have a golf resort than a 5,000 home, high-density subdivision any day. My question is just, how do we work the infrastructure if we've just created basically a loophole to build hotels or something similar out east?
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, first and last name, county of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the board on this item.
Talha Sadiq, Manatee County. I would urge this county commission to review this and make some changes to it. And here's why. One, why do we need to have, and I'm certainly not against innovative ideas. I work in tech. I'm quite used to those coming up and changing the way we do business and promote economic development. But why do we need to have I would argue, a pretty significant change, literally adding a whole new category of development to our LDC, which is really executing our comp plan, whose purpose is to promote the physical environment of our community and promote, good and human and natural resource activities, good use of those things on that land. Why are we doing this specifically for ag land? Like it's been said before, I'm certainly against the idea of promoting just bulldozing over wetlands and watersheds for 5,000 homes. Golf courses are certainly nicer to look at, but just the idea that we're essentially just adding a whole new category to our LDC, especially at a time where we are still in the process of reviewing our comp plan and providing a new vision forward, I think is not a sound move. We have plenty of golf courses, plenty of essentially hotels like IMG and plenty of others that operate next to a golf course. I don't quite see why we need to create a whole new category. Seems to me we're far too adamant on finding new ways and innovative ways to collect bed tax and other taxes and grow our government beyond the scale that it needs to be than it is on finding responsible ways to approach and attack getting after making meaningful changes to our comp plan and LDC. The last thing I'll say is, again, I know we're doing a lot of interesting things with our plan with regards to ag land. What I would say is this: we really need to find better ways to be able to promote conservation of our wetlands and our watershed, because at the end of the day, and I've looked at the plan for this development, it's not very clear how this development is actually following best practices from the county in order to do that. I see a lot of buzzwords. I don't see a lot of technical detail and good discussion on that. So I would just like this commission to consider that before making this change. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Just to be clear, this government does not permit the bulldozing of wetlands for 5,000 houses. Ma'am, first and last name, county of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Charlene Gao, Manatee County. I echo the previous comments, but I have a question that I would like to hear answered in the comments, Commissioner comments, is why is this being presented as staff initiated when we actually hear that it was an idea being floated by basically the developers, and public records requests, as far as I understand, have revealed that there's been communications from developers to basically create this thing for their benefit, and they're not paying the money for it. That's my big question. I'd like to hear an answer for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Feltz, remember to introduce yourself.
Hi, Carol Feltz, Mayaca City. Again, I think what our question is the origins of this, because in following certain things, and just to give some background on these things, how we found out, and again, this goes back to my bigger signs, project list, let's get involved with the neighborhood registry, education, information, and involvement of our citizens. It's a two-way street to get information. The first we heard about basically resort cottages, or as they called them, casitas, out east, was through real estate ads. We did go back and find the items on the project list, but remember that we had 3 months that we were not given a weekly project list through our registry with the neighborhood services. So it just seems unlikely that the idea of, gosh, we need a land development code text amendment for resort cottages just happened to come at the same time that we found out that guess what they want to build out in Mayaca City on the banks of the Mayaca River, resort cottages, which this has not even come through, I don't believe. I think it was under first review, went back to applicant. The other one, I don't even think we've gone through this with the Planning Commission yet. But hey, you know what, people? Guess what's going on that property as we speak right now? I have residents in our district, Mr. Satcher, Mr. Bearden, Mr. Cruz, that need your representation because the land is already being altered. The trucks are coming in. We had a big discussion.
Excuse me. It seems like we're delving into a quasi-judicial matter that's pending.
No, I'm just telling you what's going on in
careful.
Mayaca.
We have to be careful that we don't subsequently validate subsequent action of the board on a quasi-judicial matter. So we have to focus today on LDC.
I'm talking about process and procedure then rather than just an individual project.
Try to just keep it on subject.
Gotcha. So what we really, really, really want to know, what our question is who decided and how is it decided? All of a sudden, the most important thing we need to be talking about right now is resort cottages and where does this apply? Because it seems to us from observing in person on that land that it has something to do with that. So we would like to know what was the impetus, because I remember this being discussed during a planning task force meeting where we also discussed pot-bellied pigs, and we also discussed the special permitting for agritourism events, and we also discussed having mandatory on-site neighborhood meetings, and none of those subjects, I think we sent the special permitting back to the drawing board for the 3rd time. Pot-bellied pigs we covered, but we want to know why right now are resort cottages so important.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please state your first and last name, your county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to address the board on item number 4 on today's agenda.
Thank you. My name is Eileen Toper. I'm a resident of Manatee County, Lakewood Ranch. Regarding the resort cottages, I'd like a better definition of what it entails. My sense is it's not just contained within country clubs, number one. Number two, we've had east here in Lakewood Ranch a lot of development, but with no regard to infrastructure in the roads and how it causes congestion with all these people. Also, there's a lot of accidents there. I was one who was involved in an accident, not my fault, and hurt. So that needs to be planned before all of these new things in growth of buildings and resort cottages. Airbnbs have had a lot of problems with residents who live full-time on their streets. Parking, noisy renters, and full-time residents that I know are very annoyed. Another thing is these resorts bring in a lot of people. And what about the water resources? You know, I live here, we live here full-time, and you do too. We need clean, potable drinking water and clean water, and we don't have it now. And that will affect long-term growth of full-time residents coming in here. You need potable drinking water. So I think before things are built, we need to be proactive, as some of the commissioners stated earlier, and have a plan. Before they're built, plan accordingly for the future in these places, for infrastructure, because over there in Lakewood Ranch, people like me, full-time residents, and I've been there almost 5 years, it wasn't like that 5 years ago. Now all the land's being scooped up, all the farmers are in revolt. We need the farmers. During the pandemic, they brought us food when there wasn't any food. They're my friends, I buy from them. So please, I just caution you to consider all these things, okay, before you put cottage and resorts in place. And lastly, part-time homeowners don't care like full-time citizens. I'm an educator and a businesswoman too for many years. I've lived all over the country. I was from Boston years ago. So I know differences in each state, pros and cons. Planning is very important. Being proactive is very important. In Lakewood Ranch now, there's a lot of these entitled people moving in. And they don't care about full-time residents. Thank you very much. Appreciate what you do, but please, plan.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to speak on item number 4 on today's consent agenda? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Ron, Commissioner Ron.
just a couple quick comments.
Well, I have one more person for public comment,
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
but I will go to you when we complete public comment, sir.
I thought you had completed. Sorry.
Okay. Otherwise, I'll give you 3 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. Sir.
I don't need food.
Okay. Mark Vandery, Manatee County. Yeah, I was going to ask if Commissioner Ron was with us, or even if Commissioner Boz is with us or not. But getting back to what we were talking about earlier about land development code amendments and comp plan amendments, this one seems really premature at this point. It seems like it's half-baked. There's a lot of questions about how it affects other issues in the land development code, in the comp plan. There's some questions about business issues. I'm not anti-development. Again, I spent 45 years as a registered engineer building things. It's a matter of how you go about building them. If you do it smartly and sustainably, and if you do it within the carrying capacity of the lands that you're dealing with. If you look at what we've done in the past and take advantage of the successes and the mistakes and use that going forward, this is an item that would be good to include in multiple workshops. Get some citizen input, and it seems to me like a number of staff and commissioners are a little bit unfamiliar with what's going on with this particular amendment. And that would be an opportunity to get drilled down deep and get more details and understand certain ramifications. And on the surface, I agree with Commissioner Cruz. It sounds like a pretty nice idea. It's a good concept. It's innovative. But are there downsides and pitfalls that need to be looked at before it's too late? So my suggestion is to step back. It's not a urgent item. It's something that can be easily made part of the overall large amendment that you're going to make change to the comp plan and the land development code that follows. And that's my recommendation at this point, is to take a step back, put it back on the shelf, open up some workshops, drill down a little deeper, get a full understanding of actually what's going on with this particular item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to come forward for public comment on item number 4? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close public comment at this time, and we'll go to Commissioner Ron. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These resort golf cottages, a lot of these will be inside private golf courses that are and have private golf management. These are going to be used basically for the members that are, and some of these private courses, they're pretty expensive to be a member of. So I don't think you're going to find that somebody joining for $1. But this is a great idea to just be another amenity that some of these golf courses that are coming online, and there are a couple coming online, that can use for their membership. They just don't want to have to go in there and look at Lakewood National. They built thousands of condominiums around the golf course. These guys, these type of things, just want to build, these cottages that the members can use. I mean, I agree with Commissioner Cruz. How do you tax these things as far as real estate taxes or whatever, or do we bed tax them or whatever? But I agree. This is a great idea. I just think that we do need staff to drill down a little bit harder on the taxing aspect of it. But I would, when it comes back around, I would support this.
No motion.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, there's no one else on the board for discussion at this time. We don't need to take action today, so we're going to recess this meeting for 10 minutes. It is 10:47 now. We're in recess.
5 and
Okay,
13.
welcome back, everyone.
5 and 13, no action.
We are moving right along through our land use meeting today, and we'll continue to do so. Just need to make one more note. Okay. And we're on item number 5, no action required. Mrs. Greer, would you please read item number 5 into the record?
LDCT 2306, ordinance number 23-64. This is a county-initiated land development code text amendment for general design requirements for plan development site plans. And Charles Andrews is here for staff, and as you stated, no action is required. It's first hearing.
All right, no action required. We have Mr. Andrews here. Would anyone like a presentation? It's presentation upon request. Commissioner Cruz.
Yeah, I want a presentation because this is a lot of stuff. Sorry, I'm not even on. I want a presentation because this is a lot of stuff. I don't think we have to go line by line by line, but I want a general idea of, again, like I said at the very beginning, I prefer not to be changing the land development code and the comp plan until we fix it. And little things like we're supposed to put an OS after an R or some other thing, fine. This is much more substantial, and so I just want, if not like line by line, at least an explanation of what this is, what we're being asked to do here relative to plan development.
Yes, sir. We'll get you that presentation. Who is here to represent staff?
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Nicole Knapp, Comprehensive Planning Division Manager. This item is a land development code text amendment. As Ms. Greer said, it's your first of 2 required hearings. This is an amendment to the land development code, basically to remove duplicative language that is found elsewhere within the land development code or within the Public Works Manual. The intent is not to reduce or mitigate the need for such requirements. It's simply to remove code language that's redundant and regulated elsewhere. Some of these items, and if I can go to Exhibit A, are just words. They don't really have any teeth, and the teeth comes in the Public Works Manual or other sections of the LDC. Letter Q, for example, defers you to the sign ordinance that's in Chapter 6, so it doesn't really say anything. And then like I'll just throw out a few examples. Letter H, regarding access, pedestrian access shall, where practical. Where practical doesn't help planners describe what the situation is. So again, in this situation, the Public Works Manual has all the teeth and the specific requirements of what should be done in those situations. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Cruz?
So, even if it's referenced elsewhere, does having this language in here hinder our code or development? I mean, is this doing something detrimental to our review or to somebody's, or is it just it's extra language in here? I mean, is it? I'm not even sure what word I'm looking for. Is there a reason why we're taking this out other than because our 2,000-page development code would be better off being 1,999 pages by removing a few sentences?
In staff's opinion, no, again, it doesn't exclude development from having to meet these requirements. And so a lot of times, the shall or excuse me, the may or the superior, these things that aren't defined kind of leave it like subjective to different planners' reviews. So by deferring to other more specific requirements, we feel it actually will be easier for the planners to do the review.
But wouldn't they defer to the more specific requirements anyway, even with this language in here? I mean, this doesn't supersede the other document, right? So just because it says shall instead of may doesn't mean they can throw out the other package.
No, but anything mentioned in the land development code would need a specific approval if you don't meet it to the letter of the law, for example, versus there may be innovative design criteria that could be met in the Public Works Manual that allows you, I'm just throwing out examples that if you have more specific examples, we have the other staff members here that maybe could better speak to letters I didn't cover.
Again, like I said, I think a lot of this is better served when we're rewriting the entire thing, because it's like when I'm like negotiating a term sheet on my other job, I always tell people, don't send me 1 or 2 comments back because then you're going to send me another 1 or 2 comments later, and I may change my mind on the first one. So making changes here and then having to rewrite this thing, I'm only looking at a snapshot of something as opposed to the entirety of this thing. And honestly, we're being asked to approve, God, there has to be like 40 changes in this thing. And we're almost being asked to approve it all or nothing unless we literally want to go through word by word. And a lot of this, I don't care about. It's not that big of a deal. Some of it just seems silly that we're taking it out, and some of it is problematic. I mean, you look at, I know, and you and I spoke about this. Somebody's like letter I, streets, drives, parking, and service areas. Right now it says that plan development will follow minimum design considerations that shall be adequately addressed. One of the things is emergency vehicle maneuverability and access. And we're taking that out because it's in whatever it was, Section 7 or something, or some other book that you mentioned to me. But I still feel this is plan development. Plan development is very expensive for developers to bring to us. If I was a developer, I would want more information than less because I don't want to spend all the money on the attorneys and on the engineers and the site plans and the water studies and then show up and find out my plan's insufficient. I'd rather say, let me know everything, every checkbox you're going to go through on my plan before I spend $100,000 in 6 months of my life doing this, not less stuff. But so it's just, some of this is development, and we capitalized it, put the word the. These aren't a big deal, but some of this almost should have been separate items altogether. Like letter N, and I mentioned this to you. That is, to me, is a problem. I'm not going to approve these words with it. Fences and screening. It changes it from fences or vegetative screening shall be provided to may be provided, which is a meaningfully different word. And I don't care about the part where it says protect occupants from undesirable views, blah, 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 in your own property. You're just building a crummy neighborhood. That's your problem. My problem is it also says may be provided to protect occupants of adjoining districts from similar adverse influences. That's affecting other people who you're not selling a house to. And we've had situations like that where people tried to minimize buffers. We just had that not that long ago. And now you have headlights and you have noise, other things going into other people's homes that didn't ask for that development in the first place. That one word is a meaningful change to that entire paragraph. And this is being asked all or nothing. You've got, where are some of the other big ones? Letter, I guess now P, it was T, environmental factors. Under water conservation, we've just been having a conversation about that. We do have it set to say creative site development concepts shall be used in order to promote water conservation. That's something we should be encouraging. But it says water requirements may be reduced for providing for, but now we just say shall be considered. Like, just let me know if you thought about it before you don't do it. And, that's somewhat important. We should be encouraging things like that. So there's a number of things in here that, again, I would say 90% of this, I don't care. But other stuff, it seemed to me silly that we would take it out if what you're saying is this isn't a change to what we're requiring. We're just taking out this wording and making somebody pull 8 binders instead of 1 binder to have to research all this yourself. I'd rather have it in one place. I'd rather some of these things like water conservation, safety features, and emergency transportation use. I mean, there's one part, and I forgot what it says. It literally basically takes away the part where you have to watch out for pedestrian safety. Like, why? Why would we take that out? Or the part we talk about where you try your best to put a sidewalk for your entryway instead of making people walk on the street. And I forgot the language. And I get the times where someone's going to say, look, like the one we just had, I have too narrow of a buffer. I can't possibly put a sidewalk in a street and it'll be a conforming road. But if you can do it, I'd rather you have the sidewalk next to the entrance and not have some mom walking their kid in a stroller on the middle of the street at an entry where people are barreling off of some major thoroughfare if you can, in theory, put a sidewalk. And that's what this is encouraged. So, again, if this came back piecemeal and it was like pick the 80% you like, I would pick the 80% and be happy with those changes. I just think there's things in here that just, in my mind, don't make sense to make the change until I can see the entirety of the proposal being made, which is something we're working on. So that's my problem with this. There are certain poison pill kind of things in here that I just think are terrible ideas to take out, even if they're duplicitous, even if we already mentioned it someplace else. It just seems like a lot of stuff on an all or nothing proposal.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Ballard.
So I think to a great extent, I agree with Commissioner Cruz's comments. I not going to beat a dead horse. It seems like a lot of these changes are not necessity right this minute. So I think that we would be better served looking at these changes in the context of our bigger changes going forward versus just kind of piecemealing it right now.
Thank you, ma'am. No one else is on the board for discussion. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on item number 5 on today's agenda? Sir, please state your first and last name, your county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to address the board.
Talha Sadiq, Manatee County, District 3. First of all, thank you to the commissioners and with regards to your comments on not hacking away at our LDC without consideration for the work we're doing to essentially reassess and redevelop our comp plan in our LDC, because, as Commissioner Cruz said, there's quite a bit of language that is substantially different meaning. This is, with all due respect to county staff, more than just about removing duplicative language. It's really about changing the meaning of the words in there too. I did a quick Control F, for example, did a quick search for some terms that were said to be duplicative. For example, the entirety of the environmental factors section, specifically Part 1, water conservation. It went from saying creative site development concepts shall be considered to promote water conservation. Actually, that's what it says now. It used to say creative site development concepts shall be used. It basically says we're stating conservation should be considered instead of being a requirement. And then we also go on to take out language which I'm having a harder time even finding in other relevant sections. Keyword being relevant. For example, preservation of existing plant communities. I don't really see that anywhere else with water conservation in our LDC. I checked. I did a quick Control F on everything in there. It's very easy to search for it. Site development that retains stormwater runoff on site. Huge problem that we have here in Florida, in Manatee County in particular. I don't see that anywhere else also under water conservation standards. And then generally speaking, site development that addresses the carrying capacity of the land in its current form, and just a bunch of other things. What we are essentially saying is we found these same words somewhere else, therefore it's duplicate language, therefore we need to strip it out. Well, context matters. When I see something that goes from a section on water conservation to, for example, and this is a true example, this is something we got from county staff, goes from water conservation and land development standards to traffic management, and that's where you find water conservation language, I think that's a serious problem. We're essentially taking a 1,000-word essay and turning it into a 500-word one because it's due in 24 hours. Or telling an AI like ChatGPT, let's make a land development code that favors quick and cheap development rather than something more comprehensive and healthy for our environment and community. So I would just say, let's hold off on these changes. It doesn't sound like they're needed. There's no metrics, performance indicators that are saying we need to do this now. No developers yelling at us saying, hey, we're losing money because of this. I think everyone realizes the cost of doing business. So let's go back to the drawing board, take a breath, and assess what language, how we can actually tackle the issue of making this LDC easier to read and understand for us as a community, as developers, and promote sustainable growth for our county. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, first and last name, your county of residence, and you have 3 minutes to address the board on this item.
Charlene Gao, Manatee County. I'm just looking through the documents that were attached, and also from the Planning Commission on April 13th, the meeting, Ms. Bowen expressed concern that the proposed changes give no benefit to constituents, and approving the changes will weaken the code and increase the threat of red tide and reduce tourism. Even though she voted for it, I mean, I appreciate Commissioner Cruz and Commissioner Ballard expressing that this whole, taking it all or nothing, this is a bad idea. It needs to be reviewed much more carefully and to make sure that you're not actually doing the thing that Ms. Bowen said, weakening the code for no benefit to the constituents and increasing the threats to our environment, which will eventually harm our tourism. And I'm also, again, concerned by the fact that this is supposedly county initiated, but there's also been public records that have shown that there's been much more than just more communication that have been spurring this county, and it feels like people are just cheaping out on paying the fees that are, instead of paying up and making their requests that way. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sir, just remember to introduce yourself.
Mark Vanderie, Manatee County. And I like to say that I certainly agree with everything Commissioner Cruz had to say about this item, and as well as Commissioner Ballard. Unlike Commissioner Ballard, though, I do think I should be beating a dead horse because I'm not sure the horse is actually dead yet. This is piecemealing LDC amendments like this. It's not necessary at this point. It's something that should be folded into the larger picture of the overall comp plan development and changes that are done at that time. Removing this type of language from the land development code in hopes that it's covered elsewhere is a pretty risky thing to do, because as one of the gentlemen prior was saying, he looked elsewhere and they weren't there. The provisions, the protections were not there. Having protections or this language show up in guidelines is not the same as having it spelled out in the land development code. Now, if there's some ambiguities or some subjectivity involved, then fix that, okay? If you don't like the word superior, then define superior. Define what it means in the code specifically. Give examples. One of the problems I have specifically with is item F, when the word superior was stricken and the word innovative and put back in its place, the sentence no longer makes sense. It's not grammatically correct. Therefore, it's a garbage sentence. Therefore, it's not enforceable. The whole paragraph F is no longer enforceable because of that. So you need to go back and fix it if you're even going to go forward with this amendment. Okay? And to say that innovative is any less subjective than superior, I disagree with. What does innovative mean? It means a lot of different things to a lot of other different people. If you're going to put that in there, then you need to define it. Put it in there and define what it means. Show examples of what you're talking about. Some of these other items that are stricken, like Commissioner Cruz was saying, changing shall to may is huge. It's a huge impact. You might as well just not even have it in there. It's a suggestion. Why even bother wasting the ink? Why even have it in there? And there's several examples where you're changing a mandatory requirement to a suggestion. Why even put a suggestion in there? It's meaningless. If you're going to have it, put it in that's going to be enforceable, that's going to carry some weight and have meaning. And these environmental factors, completely against removing any of them. You're going the wrong direction. Don't piecemeal this. Go back, do a comprehensive review, and do it properly. Have workshops as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, please state your first and last name, your county of residence. You have 3 minutes.
Roger Vogt, Manatee County. I once had a Danish boss, and his English was a second language, and he always cautioned about beating a dead horse to death. But that's what I'm going to do here. Try to pile on what everybody else has said. Here's a sentence that's being removed. Existing native plant communities shall be preserved. That's gone. Now, I know the arguments. I went to the land meeting a couple weeks ago that these are streamlining clerical changes, eliminating duplicate language, but nobody in the public, and apparently nobody here either, has got any evidence to support that. We're being told that that these changes exist elsewhere, but we're not being provided that information. At the Planning Commission meeting 2 weeks ago, after being told that the changes were merely administrative, Commissioner Rutledge said to the Planning Department, "I believe you." But at a BOCC meeting last week on a different topic, Commissioner Bearden used the phrase, "trust but verify." That's why I'm here. I've asked the county to show me where the duplicate language is located. I did finally get a response about 24 hours ago. So if I want to know what the change is on R, it's LDC Chapter 7. Chapter. Find it in there. Just 24 hours. There's not enough time to go in and verify and look and see that these changes make sense. And apparently you guys haven't spent that time either. So I am urging you to take the time. I mean, we practically fired the acting administrator last week because he wasn't getting him your information, whatever that means. This information is not here on this. I don't see how you can approve this or move it forward to the next step. And I urge you to listen to what everybody else here has said and do this in a better way so that we all can feel confident that we're not destroying the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, first and last name, county of residence.
Eileen Topa, Lakewood Ranch, Manatee County, District 5. I agree with Commissioner Cruz and Baylor's comments. You know, you mentioned that you have to go to an outside source. I just want to clarify one thing. For commissioners, it costs a lot of money. You have a wealth of educated populace who have dealt with things like this from all over the country, different states and across the world. You have other counties in Florida who've already done it. So I would rather not have people reinvent the wheel and spend a lot of tax dollars. Stay in Florida and seek out sources here who could help you, even on a voluntary basis. Secondly is this, taxes are good, I mean, to a point, but it's starting to impact native Floridians, people like me who lived here, and people who are good citizens for long term, people on fixed incomes and families. I'm getting to the point now where I'm taxed out. I may not, I'm leaving Lakewood Ranch when the market gets better for real estate, but I can't live there anymore. I can't afford it, see? So it's forcing me out, it's forcing native Floridians who were born and raised here. And you live here too with families and children. And with all this growth, believe me, the sheriff's over on White Eagle Boulevard near Gullet School across the street from me, and Gullet is a great school. I've been in there, I'm an educator, done projects there. But these little children have the right of way, and other school crosswalks, they're getting killed. And it devastates the families the rest of their lives, ruins them. For what? Money and greed? And these entitled people moving in here, and that's all they want. No ethics. Other thing is, you talk about land use. You have to realize, this red tide and seaweed coming up from Cuba and all the negatives to natural resources is ruining the fishing industry, which brings a lot of money into Florida. It's ruining tourism, or it will. Who wants to come to a state where you can't swim in the waters? Never used to be like that. So I think we better look at that and consider that. Another thing is, I would go slower with everything, just like Commissioner Cruz and Baylor mentioned. Step back. You can get committees of citizens like myself, well-educated. I lived all over the country. I've seen other school boards and commissioners, pros and cons. I take out the pros and try to apply them here. Please make your, all right, thank you very much. I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please state your first and last name, your county of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, Stacy Jesse, Manatee County. I just wanted to agree, I think, with everyone that's been up here. We've been told that the language is duplicative, that they're just words with no teeth. I was also at the Planning Commission meeting with the votes, where we did discuss back and forth on this, and I think you've all heard multiple places in 402.6 of the LDC where those changes are substantial. They are fundamentally different. Just to, in F, we go from superior to innovative. In G, we removed the word additional. In N, we took shall and just made it may. And T, which is now P, the environmental factors, we put considered instead of saying we shall do something. So these are all fundamental changes to the land development code and to what these new subdivisions will look like. And so it doesn't, to me, feel at all like it's duplicative. And I think even if maybe somewhere else in some ordinance or in some public works document we're covered, your constituents and your future constituents who are going to live in these new site developments would rather us have the redundancy that improves our quality of life and protects our pedestrians than have you take it out saying that it's duplicative. So I would just ask that like, our commissioners have said, we're better served saving these little cleanups and changes for when we rewrite the whole thing. Why are we wasting time looking at all these little changes now when we could do a really comprehensive overview of it, look at everything in detail when we get to that stage. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Just remember to introduce yourself.
Carol Feltz, Mayaca City. When we read the wording on this, one of the things that we need, I realize that a lot of things need legalese and you need to express things in a certain manner to cover for certain bases because, God forbid, we get sued on something. But I'd like to pluck out any high school graduate and have them be able to explain a wording in something like this. And when I look at some of these wordings, county initiated. Who is the county? That's us. And like I've said before, we want to know the absolute origins of these things because we are finding that somehow as things go along, this wasn't something that the citizens came and said, hey, we need to do this. Do you know how many, I think I've lost count, but do we know how many Scribner's errors have been corrected for one reason or another? Now, if we have that many Scribner's errors that we're correcting, obviously when we scribed it in the first place, we must have missed something there. So defining a county-initiated land development code text amendment, we know that a privately initiated text amendment takes a lot of money behind it. There's application fees and paying lawyers and site plans and all kinds of things like this. With the county-initiated one, yes, we do count on our staff and our representatives to fix something that maybe, it makes sense or whatever it is. But we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. We're paying consultants, and we're big on paying consultants. But as someone also said, we have a wealth of institutional knowledge, shall we say, we're a retired community. We have ex-county managers out there and city managers out there. And we have, I think at last count, somewhere over maybe 20 to 25 different citizens advisory committees. Where are they weighing in on this? If this was county initiated, those are the county. Is there anybody here? And to me, if you're going to be the chairman of a citizens advisory committee, that they need to be here at those meetings too. And they need to have a part of this. So we're going on with, we have to review the land development code. We have to do this massive comprehensive, but we're doing all these little changes in the background that explain to me who in the county initiated this and why with every single one of these. We've said that we're beating a dead horse, something that I know a lot about. Okay? And in horses, we do three things. We ask, then we request, then we demand.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to speak on item number 5 on today's agenda? All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. There's no one on the board for discussion at this time. No action is needed on item number 5, so we'll move on to item number 6. Denise Greer, if you could read item number 6 into the record.
Item number 6 is actually for transmittal. So it's PA 2219, ordinance number 23-24, and ordinance number 23-49 through 23-58, general cleanup of county-initiated large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. And Charles Andrews is here for staff.
Okay, Mr. Andrews, if you could give us a brief overview of item number 6, please, sir.
The Cliff Notes. Yes, sir. Hi, good morning, Commissioners. Charles Andrews, for the record, certified planner with the Comprehensive Planning Division. Get the presentation up there. So, as Ms. Greer read into the record, this is for a comprehensive plan map amendment, general cleanup, multiple ordinances here, which I'll get to in a minute. This is touching on multiple future land use categories, going to conservation, rec open space, our public, semi-public 1, and semi-public 2, or public, semi-public 2 categories. Essentially, this is just staff went through and we saw, going through the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, that there were some cleanups that were needed. And these are on properties that are located outside of the 100-year floodplain that just needed to be cleaned up. Parks or fire stations and whatnot that are, nonprofit entities such as Manatee County Fire District, Swift Mud, those kind of things. Last bullet point here, just like I said, parks and preserves, lift stations, potable water, sanitary sewer infrastructure, utilities, etc. So this is essentially just a cleanup. Positive aspects, reclassification of the properties, it more accurately reflects what is on the site and represents what the future land use map accurately shows and under element 2 of the comprehensive plan. There are no negative aspects with this. Mitigating aspects, we would have future rezonings, which may occur to ensure consistency between the future land use classifications and the zoning districts of the applicable properties. Conclusion, the request appears to meet the applicable policies of the comprehensive plan, land development code regulations, and the request is for transmittal of the plan amendment and the related ordinances. And as Ms. Greer said, this is for transmittal. I'm here if you have any questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There are no commissioners on the board, so we will open this item up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on item number 6 on today's agenda? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. No action is required.
What, no. we
Oh,
do
I'm sorry,
have
there
a
is, this is transmittal.
Motion transmittal.
I apologize. So we have a motion on the, we're entertaining motions. It's on your screen now. If anyone would like to make a motion. Commissioner. I'm not in charge of the IT, but you're on now. So Commissioner Cruz has made a motion to approve. That has been seconded by Commissioner Ballard. No one's on the board for discussion, and we've held public comment. So commissioners, we can vote at this time. Commissioner Ron, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Commissioner Ron votes yes, and as do the rest of us. So, Madam Clerk, it passes unanimously by a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Baugh absent. All right, we'll move on to item number 7. I believe that's transmittal as well. Let me turn the page here.
Yes.
Memory serves me. Yes, it is.
This is your transmittal hearing. PA 2217, ordinance number 23-22, and ordinance number 23-36 through 23-47. It's a community rating system for Class 4 county-initiated large-scale comprehensive plan map amendment. And Charles Andrews is here for staff.
All right, presentation upon request. Mr. Andrews is here. Would anyone like a presentation? Okay. Hearing no one, we'll open this up to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to come forward to speak to the board regarding item number 7 on today's agenda? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Sir, did you want to speak, or were you just moving in your chair? Okay, we'll close public comment. And we are ready to put a motion on the screen. So we're entertaining motions at this time. Motion by Commissioner Ballard to approve, seconded by Commissioner Van Ostenbridge. We've held public comment. There's no one on the board for discussion. So commissioners, we can vote now. We need what? Commissioner Ron, how do you vote, sir?
I vote yes.
Okay, Commissioner Ron votes yes, and as do the rest of us. So it passes by a vote of 5-0 with Commissioners Baugh and Commissioners Cruz absent. Okay, we're going to open items number 8, 9, and 10 together. Mrs. Greer, would you please read all 3 of those into the record? We will vote on them separately, but we're going to open and hold those together.
Item number 8, PA 22-11, ordinance number 23-02, county-initiated comprehensive plan text amendment, Evers Reservoir, Lake Manatee Reservoir, and Peace River Watershed Overlay Districts. Bill O'Shea is here for staff. Item number 9 is PA 22-09, ordinance number 23-03. It's county-initiated comprehensive plan large-scale map amendment, Evers Reservoir, Lake Manatee Reservoir, and Peace River Watershed Overlay Districts, and beneficial reuse area for the Evers Reservoir watershed. And again, Bill O'Shea is here for staff. Item number 10, LD CT 2008, ordinance number 23-01, county-initiated land development code amendment, Evers Reservoir, Lake Manatee Reservoir, and Peace River Watershed Overlay Districts and beneficial reuse area of the Evers Reservoir. Bill O'Shea is here for staff.
Would anyone like a presentation on 8, 9, and or 10? Okay. Mr. O'Shea, you're doing a great job today. We're going to open public comment on 8, 9, and 10 together. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on items 8 through 10? Yes, sir. First and last name, county of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the board on these items.
Mark Mandaree, Manatee County. Yeah, I kind of would like to know what's behind these amendments. Why are we doing this at this time? What is the need to change some of this language? I noticed the map for the Evers watershed overlay is being reduced in size somewhat. I'd like to have some information on details on why is that occurring. And again, I don't know what the urgency is for this amendment at this point in time and why it couldn't have been done with the overall more comprehensive change of the comp plan and land development codes. I don't know who we have on right now. Is Commissioner Ron with us by Zoom or Commissioner Cruz? I don't know who I'm talking to right now. I guess
You're addressing the board. You have 3 minutes, sir.
I don't know who's on the board right now.
You're addressing, sir, we don't Q&A with you. You have 3 minutes.
I understand. I'm just asking if, well, I don't know who the board is right now. But my question is, what's behind this change? Why is it being done now? Why can't it not wait until later and be part of a more comprehensive review instead of being part of the piecemealing? Why can we not open up some public dialogue and some workshops on the issues related to the watersheds, which are very, very critical to the county overall, as we all know how important they are. Changing the names and acronyms to watershed overlay to protected watershed protected overlay. I don't know if that in turn is affecting elsewhere in other Florida statutes or ordinances that may be affected by that word change or the words and acronym changes. Has that been fully vetted? Has that been fully researched to see if maybe you're tripping up something else somewhere else in another statute and maybe removing some restrictions or some regulations that really need to be left in place? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, please state your first and last name, county of residence. You have 3 minutes to address the board on items 8, 9, and 10.
Yes. Eileen Toper, Manatee County, Lakewood Ranch. Regarding the terminology, I think I'm not going to beat on that. Everyone has explained, and you have too. I think it need be clearer, more succinct. Most educators like me do outlining, keep it simple so the citizenry can understand. Picture is worth 1,000 words. Also, I'm with the Nature Conservancy and all these conservation groups. If I'm not mistaken, isn't the Lake Manatee Reservoir a source of public water for the county? Could someone clarify that for me? Anyway, if it is, all these things, these are watersheds, very important to water and resources for people who live here. Also, I would say that, trying to be fast, but I'm getting, okay, you know, with everything introduced, there's negatives and positives, good or bad. But I see more negatives now in Manatee County than positives. And I see positives in other counties on the Gulf Coast. I won't go into detail now, but I have the facts. Also, there's a good documentary. I'm an ambassador with WEDU PBS. They're based in Tampa, Paul Grove, President and CEO, and they also in Sarasota County and Manatee County. They just produced an excellent documentary called The Sarasota Experience. Well, it's the history of Sarasota to present day, but it's also a clarion call to all of us citizens in all the Gulf Coast of Florida to wake up, commissioners too, because we're going downhill here, and Sarasota is a city today no different from every other city like here in Manatee County, Florida, or in that country. It will be syndicated all over the U.S. It's so good. Standing ovation. So I would suggest you do tune in and watch it. It will be aired again on the WEDU PBS channel, but you can also get it online, streaming. Everybody is watching it, believe me, and I think it's well worth seeing. There'll be a second documentary in another year for any areas that were not discussed or shown. Excellent filming. The producer is a young native Floridian, did all his filming from Sarasota at UCLA, got his degree, okay? And again, please, call in. You know, our students, even elementary students, when I was at Gullet, are fully aware of what's going on. They're bright young people. College students here are passionate about goodness and ethics and land use and education. Call them in, get on committees, and let them be heard. And lastly, please go out with the public commissioners.
Thank you, ma'am.
And listen to your
Thank you,
constituency.
ma'am. Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to address the board on items number 8, 9, and 10? Ma'am, please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Carol Feltz, Mayaca. As Mark Vandry also stated, our tax dollars at work, do we get to take a discount on our property taxes for not being able to address an entire board? Because it does require some explanation. I'm up here, we're all up here. It's bad enough that we get up here and you're all looking down at your phones, but now we're losing. There's still no explanation for Ms. Ball not being here, and I hope that she is well. I don't know what happened to Mike Ron. I don't know what happened to George Cruz. But the bottom line of what we're trying to tell you with this is all of these multiple cleaning up this. We just happen to be dealing with it does look a little bit snarky. We just happen to be dealing with changing verbiage on our comprehensive plan for our water issues, where we're looking at an increase of 10,000 homes right in the middle of these reservoirs and watershed areas. And you don't think that that is a coinky-dink. It's not. That's why we're asking, why are these things so important right now, but yet not important enough for us to be able to talk to an entire board? So it's so important that we're doing this, but not so important that someone could show up at a meeting in person. So coinky-dinkly that we're dealing with this and we're dealing with cottages when some of us who know and who are keeping track of what's going on in the future know exactly what this is tied to. Secondly, last night at George Cruz's town hall, who he's not here to verify this, we appreciate our electronics, our technology, all of these kind of things. But you know what? When you're going to vote, one of the things that was brought up last night is it's great for y'all to bring it in, but stand up, say it. Say, yes, I'm for this, or no, I'm not, because we don't even get on the board. And thank you, Kevin. You are always very good at announcing it after it is recorded. But we have an electronic way of voting where we want to see you. We want to look into your eyes. And when you say yes or you say no to something, say it. Put in your little code and all that kind of stuff. But look at us and make those decisions looking into our eyes. Secondly, another thing that was brought up last night was that there's no way to have a voting record.
Man, we're way off subject here.
I'm not avoiding the subject because I'm not even addressing a full board.
8, 9, and 10.
8, 9, and 10. 2, 3, 4. We need a way of tracking your voting records. We can't hear you. We can't see you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're not even here.
Thank you, ma'am.
And people want that information.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to come forward to address the board on items 8, 9, or 10? All right. There is Tammy Gatchter is on the speaking list. Had signed up. Is she here? Okay. We're going to close public comment at this time. And my first question is there anyone? There's no one on the board for discussion. Let me go back to that screen. There's no one on the board for discussion. So then, Mr. Commissioner Statcher is on the board for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just procedurally, I just want to point out, that they come to us first for review where there's no action, then they come back to us for transmittal, and then back to us again for acceptance. So, I think it was February 16th, I believe I read in the documents that this first came up. I know that it was presented, especially when it's coming to the Evers and the Manatee County watershed, because I was, obviously that perked my interest, that basically there had been a new study as far as where the water went in each direction by SwiftMud, I believe. So they were, fixing that. But if there's if there's some nefarious thing that you see clearly happening that's going to really affect something in the future, you'll have time to review this. I'm talking to citizens right now. You're going to have time to review this, and not that it's 100% on you. I understand it's not. I'm not saying that it is, but take a look and don't hold back, because I'm hearing, I'm listening to what you have to say on each of these things. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Commissioner Ballard.
So I did just want to quickly say that we did have feedback on each of these from SwiftMud, from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, as well as DEP. Those are experts in those areas. Everything that I've read from our state experts is saying that they don't see any negative environmental consequences. And unless I'm provided with some information contrary to that, I'm going to trust those state experts.
Thank you, ma'am. And Ms. Feltz, I would just say you're berating the commissioners that are here. For those who are not here, Commissioner Ron is on Zoom also. All right, so I think we can move forward then with motions on number 8. We'll do these individually. So we'll start with number 8. We're entertaining motions on that item. I cannot make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Ballard has made a motion. It's been seconded by Commissioner Bearden. I apologize. Technology has handicapped you, Commissioner Ron. You missed out on that one. But there's a motion to approve by Commissioner Ballard. It's been seconded by Commissioner Bearden. We've held public comment. There's no one on the board for discussion, so we are ready to cast our votes at this time. Commissioner Ron, sir, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Ron votes yes on item number 8. And the rest of the board does, well, almost. How do you vote, sir? Yes. Okay, so then we have a 5-0 vote of unanimous approval. 5-0 is a yes. On the screen, it's okay. Now it's correct. Unanimously approved, 5-0, with Commissioner Baugh and Commissioner Cruz absent. We'll then move on to item number 9, and we're entertaining motions on item number 9. Motion to approve by Commissioner Ballard, seconded by Commissioner Van Ostenbridge. We've held public comment. No one's on the board for discussion, so we can cast our votes now. Commissioner Ron, how do you vote on item number 9, sir?
Yes.
Commissioner Ron votes yes on item 9, as does the rest of the board. It's approved unanimously by a vote of 5-0 with Commissioner Baugh and Commissioner Cruz absent. We'll move on to item number 10. We're entertaining motions on item number 10. Motion to approve by Commissioner Ballard, seconded by Commissioner Van Ostenbridge. We've held public comment, and there's no one on the board for discussion, so we may cast our votes now. Commissioner Ron, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Commissioner Ron votes yes. So the item passes unanimously by a vote of 5-0 with Commissioner Baugh and Commissioner Cruz absent. All right, we'll move on to item number 11. It's the first public hearing. Denise Greer, please read item number 11 into the record.
As stated, this is the first public hearing for LDA 2202, Local Development Agreement for Robinson Gateway. It's quasi-judicial, and Nicole Knapp is here for staff.
So if there's anyone who intends to speak on this item or any of the quasi-judicial items coming up later, which would be 12,
Just 12.
just 12, yeah. So this item or item number 12, this item or the next item, please stand and be sworn at this time. Anyone who intends to testify before this board.
Normally, we allow staff to introduce it first, then the applicant. I guess so.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, this is quasi-judicial. Would anyone like to disclose ex parte communication on this item? Okay, hearing none. Who is here to represent staff? We'll start with staff on this one. It's not a final, right? It's just a first hearing.
Correct. Good morning again, Commissioners. For the record, Nicole Knapp, Comprehensive Planning Division Manager. And this is the first hearing of two, so there's no action required today. The second hearing will be held on May 9th. And this is for the purpose of establishing a local development agreement for Robinson Gateway. To establish under the terms, the applicant developer should be required to pay and construct proportionate share mitigation of required improvements to satisfy transportation concurrency requirements. To quantify the dollars required for prop share and to itemize impact fee credits against the sum. And I don't see the applicant, unfortunately. If you need a full presentation, I don't see the applicant.
We don't necessarily need a full presentation. It's presentation upon request. I thought it would be good for, at least to read something into the record before we move forward. We'll open it up to public. There's no one on the board for discussion, so we'll open it up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward? Yes, sir. To address the board on item number 11 on today's agenda. So, sir, please state your first and last name, your county of residence. Tell us if you've been sworn, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
I am Charles Parker. I'm a resident of Palmetto, Florida, north of the river, also known as God's country. And I have been sworn. And the reason why I'm here is because I'm interested in the full presentation. And I would like to know how the county and the developer are addressing the impacts of the neighborhood. In particular, during the last approvals, you guys waived a 30-acre park requirement. And I'm interested in what you guys got in trade for giving the developer 30 more acres to sell, develop, or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to address the board on item number 11 on today's agenda? Anyone else for public comment for item 11? Okay, hearing no one, we're going to close public comment at this time. There's no one on the board for discussion. No action is required at this time. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. So it's 11:50. I don't think we should wade into advertised public hearings with presentations scheduled. So I think we should recess this meeting for lunch and return at 1:30. Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, we're in recess till 1:30. All right, welcome back. We are cruising right along here in our April 27th land use meeting. The next item on the agenda is development services, and we are in the advertised public hearing presentation scheduled portion of our meeting. So Denise Greer, if you would please introduce item number 12.
Item number 12, PDR 2229 ZG Reagan Ranch Residential Trust and Ferguson Esther Real Estate Trust and Reagan Residential Trust under will of Estelle L.R. It's a quasi-judicial project, and Chelsea Freeman is here for staff.
Thank you. So, Commissioners, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Does anyone have any ex parte communication they would like to disclose at this time? Okay. Hearing none, who is here to represent the applicant?
Me, sir, John Osborne, have been sworn. I'm a resident of Manatee County. If I could have the PowerPoint presentation up, please. Thank you. So this project is known as Reagan Subdivision. It's the development team includes Chris Pereira, which is from the Pulte Group. Our attorney is Caleb Grimes. I'm the project manager planner on the project. We also have Strickland Smith from Height Design, who's our engineer, Traffic engineer is Michael Yates, and our environmental scientist is Joel Christian. And this project is located actually east of I-75. It's located kind of almost at the intersection of Upper Manatee River Road and Rye Road. It's up by Rye Wilderness Park. And you can see sort of the arrow there. We're south of the river. And zooming in a bit, the site is approximately 223 acres in size. We're right across the street on Upper Manatee River Road from the Riverwood subdivision and across on Rye Road from the Rye Wilderness Estates. We're just north of Gene Witt Elementary School and north of the East Manatee County Fire Station off Rye Road as well. So from a future land use map perspective, we're in the Urban Fringe 3 future land use category, which is obviously an area for low density residential development, and we're inside the county's water and sewer service area. And from a zoning perspective, currently the site is zoned A, agriculture. We're proposing to rezone it to planned development residential, which as you can see, we're kind of almost like a donut hole with PDR zoning all around us. And surrounding uses include to the north of our site on Upper Manatee River Road, obviously there's some PDR, that's a subdivision there, but there's also some RSF1, some 1 acre lots with houses on the north side. And obviously to the southeast side is River Wilderness Estates, and to our southwest is Del Tierra Estates. And to the west is actually property owned by the same owner, the Reagan family, which is that A-zone property on the west side of our property, the subject property. So zooming in a bit more, we are proposing a GDP. And this is the GDP that we submitted that's in your file. This is a little tough to read in a hearing like this, so we've got a colorized one for you here. And we're proposing a density of 2.2 acres. And this will be single-family detached homes, 1- and 2-story houses on the 223 acres. We're proposing 55 acres of open space, which is 25%. And as we go through the final site plan process later on, this may actually increase a little bit. We are proposing access points you can see on the screen on the north side, on Upper Manatee River Road, and on the sort of the south east corner there across from Rye Wilderness Estates. There is a potential inter-neighborhood tie proposed actually on the west side of the property to the vacant or ag zone property, which is also owned by the Reagan family. We aren't proposing any connection to Del Tierra. There is a stub out there, but as you can see, it's sort of on the northern part of our sort of our southern or southwestern property boundary. We've put also a pond there as well to provide some additional buffering and that kind of thing. And this will be a gated community. We're proposing 2 phases, and that's so that black line going through that dash line going through the middle of the project is showing the 2 phases of the properties. So in terms of PDR, we are proposing, again, single-family detached, very typical lots, what you see in this area being developed today, 40-foot wide lots that are about 4,400 square feet in size. Typical PDR setbacks as well, which you see, I know in a lot of different cases coming before you. We are also proposing the roadway buffers along the site will be 20-foot wide. We're also, again, like I said before, we try to put the ponds in locations that will help with some additional buffering and setbacks as well. And this subdivision will also have a recreation amenity center, probably nearby the entrance there on Rye Road. In terms of green belts and buffers and landscaping, there is a section of the Land Development Code in 413E that basically, if you're adjacent to agricultural zoned areas, it requires additional setbacks of 35 feet. What we've asked for you to consider is a specific approval for alternative design, basically using the typical setbacks, greenbelt buffers that are identified in PDR. On the northwest side, along the pasture area, there would be a 15-foot greenbelt buffer, but we also propose some enhanced landscaping, so basically beef up the county's PDR landscape standards with some additional plantings, and also basically we agreed with staff who stipulated that if there is active agriculture there, at the time you develop, that buffer will be increased to 20 feet in terms of the greenbelt buffer itself. So for the eastern property boundary along the A-zoned area, we're proposing a 15-foot buffer there with actually a screening fence and some enhanced landscaping as well. And obviously, anytime you build in Manatee County, there's typically a stipulation put in there about to notice to buyers kind of thing, hey, you're building next to agriculturally zoned property. A little more detail on the northwest buffer, what it looks like there in terms of the makeup of it, in terms of being 2.5 canopy trees and 33 shrubs per 100-foot, and also be a berm there as well. We don't want the height, usually berms are anywhere from like 4 to 6 feet kind of thing. So we're also proposing a berm, not just on the northwest property boundary, but also on the eastern boundary as well. So those adjacent residences to our east will have a very attractive looking greenbelt buffer to look at. And this is just typical PDR buffers you see in the area when you see them houses, communities like this being developed. They built very, very highly aesthetic, very attractive in terms of what the built environment looks like post-development. Environmentally speaking, from a wetlands perspective, there's over 33 acres of wetlands on site, including the buffers is over 44 acres, and we're not proposing to impact those either. We are proposing that, obviously we're meeting the minimum open space requirements, and likely as we move to final site plan, we'll probably exceed that a little bit. In terms of transportation, we are going to line our access points as required by the county to the subdivision to the north and to the east. So River Wind will align our entrance there on the north of Upper Manatee River Road. And Rye Wilderness Estates, obviously off Rye Road, we'll align it there. That's 167th Boulevard Northeast. And obviously, when you get through the final site plan, we'll be applying for concurrency with that, and there'll be a more detailed traffic impact analysis done at that point. And most likely, we know we'll be likely putting in some turn lanes as well for our property in this project. And those turn lanes will be required to meet the latest standards in terms of decel and that kind of thing. So there is, we do propose a potential neighborhood tie on the east side of the project, and we also are providing the right-of-way setback. So as Upper Manatee River Road, this east-west section of Upper Manatee has a future right-of-way standard of 84 feet. So there's the half width, obviously, is about 42 feet. So we'll be providing a right-of-way setback, obviously based on that distance or delta between where the property line is today and what the future county needs are for future improvements to that road. And the same thing for Rye Road. Rye Road, even though it's 2 lanes today and the county's thoroughfare plan, it's a 4-lane divided facility, which is 120-foot wide right-of-way. So we'll be providing a right-of-way setback again for that 60-foot half width. So they'll make it room for county future improvements to that facility. We're not proposing an neighborhood tie again to Del Tierra. And we will be obviously extending any sidewalks along Rye Road and also on Upper Manatee River Road as well. From a stormwater perspective, this had a little more conversation in our Planning Commission meeting. We want to kind of provide a little more detail for you all. So you can see on the site plan that we submitted, the GDP, those arrows that I've highlighted there, those are basically arrows of where pre-development, that's where the flow goes today. This is kind of a high spot actually in this part of the county. So the water right now, from an overland flow perspective, it rains on the site. It kind of flows actually to the northwest. So obviously, when you develop a site, you develop it to the county's stormwater utility engineering standards manual and to the SWIFMUD criteria. So obviously, we'll be submitting drainage and grading plans for the project with the final site plan. And obviously, like those when you saw the colorized graphic, all the blue ponds, they will have outfall structures. And everything when it rains on the site, everything's graded to flow into the ponds. And then there's an outfall after that to the northwest. So the water will be going off-site to the northwest. There was a photograph that was shown, one of citizen comments actually, and we appreciate this kind of information. This is actually a photograph taken during, I think it was post-Hurricane Irma during a dam release, where the county, in preparation for massive rain events, will sometimes release water and things like that. So this is sort of one of those kind of photos. So it looks like wow, kind of a worst case scenario kind of photo. But we also we added in there where our property was, so it's more clear, because I don't think it was clear to the Planning Commission when they looked at it in terms of where our property was in the location for the photograph, and those arrows represent sort of the drainage, how it's going to go today, or even post-development. So if you're out there standing on Upper Manatee River Road looking south, this is what the site looks like. It's basically pasture, and so you're doing about face, and you look at River Wind to the north there, and stand looking down the road, Upper Manatee River Road looking east. And looking sort of back the other way, you can see the turn lane going into River Wind there. And standing at the entrance of Rye Wilderness Estates, looking sort of northwest into the property. And looking down Rye Road at our sign there, the property. So we had a neighborhood workshop actually back in December, and we had about 44 people in attendance. About 6 of us were with the project. And you can see what some of the concerns were about development of the area. How is the site going to be accessed? What about traffic? Any assurances about the project will be in code, this kind of thing. What about flooding, about drainage in the area? And of course, density, what's your density proposed? We're at 2.2, where we could be a maximum of 3. And what they asked about what the value of the homes is going to be, what about expansion of schools and that kind of stuff. So in terms of, we went through obviously the land development code with staff, and the staff report is reflective of this. And in terms of criteria for review, there's 3 major sections that the staff looks at. And we believe with the site plan and what we proposed in the site plan and stipulations, and what we've proposed also to mitigate specific approval, that we believe that we meet the code and comp plan and the intent of it. In terms of PDR, we are proposing a lot less density than what you really could. We're proposing a maximum of 500 dwelling units on the site, whereas if you do the math, you could have up to, certainly up to 669s. We're proposing something that we feel have a nice design, nice quality of life, a little more open space associated with it. And we believe that using PDR provides a lot of consistency and predictability, not just for us, but also for citizens of the area and for the board and the planning commission as well. We also recognize too that if we did want to change something, if we did want to provide something different than what we're showing today, then we'd have to come back. We'd have to start the process all over again if we got a wild hair and wanted to do something different. So that's just more information for citizens. But we also believe that the access improvements also we're proposing will be obviously the final site plan stage of the turn lane improvements and that kind of thing. And also the right-of-way setbacks will be helpful for the county in the future in terms of any future road improvements that may come up. So you are respectfully requesting approval today for the GDP and the rezoning and the specific approval, having those alternative design, having more intense buffers for those ag operations, which were really the intent of that. I think back even when I worked here was intense ag. You live next to a dairy farm, you live next to a citrus grove. There's big pumps, there's smudge pots, there's all this stuff going on. Where our neighbors to the east are just single family homes that are zoned A, and the neighbor to the west is there's a pasture there, and it's kind of lightly used. And likely it may even come in for development at some point. So this a little bit different situation today than maybe what the intent of the code section was looking at. So we believe we're consistent with the code and comp plan. And we appreciate county staff. This actual project went really quick for us, so we appreciate the efforts and hard work that your team does here. So thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There doesn't seem to be anyone on the board at this time for questions for the applicant. Does anyone have questions for the applicant? No, sir. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Thanks, sir.
Staff. Who is here to represent staff?
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Freeman. I am a planner with Development Services staff. I have been sworn. I think I can work this up clicker. Okay. So we're here to discuss Ragged Ranch. It's a rezone with a GDP. I believe the applicant provided sufficient information for the site location, the future land use, while acknowledging that the proposed density, both gross and net, is within that of the allowable within the future land use category. I believe they provided sufficient information for the existing zoning and surrounding zoning. The request, to clarify, is to rezone 223 acres of the existing parcel from A to PDR for 500 single-family detached residential dwelling units with an amenity center and associated infrastructure. One specific approval for 401.3.E.8, which is that 35-foot setback. We'll discuss the alternative designs that they've proposed in a moment here. It is 2 gated entries that are proposed. I believe all of my notes were covered by the applicant on that. Cutting to the specific approvals, the applicant did clarify the enhanced buffers that are proposed on the east and on the northwest are 2 different designs. Along the east side, where it abuts 5-acre residential homes with some agricultural activities, that enhanced buffer is derived from the screening buffers table. It's option A. So it's not like we're pulling the enhanced buffers from thin air. It's based on a screening buffer standard. And then on the west, the northwest, that is option B from the same screening. There is not an agricultural setback proposed for the eastern perimeter. It would just be that 15-foot automatically without any regard to whether or not there's active agriculture at time of FSP for the east side. On the northwest side, if at time of FSP there is still active agricultural activity, including that pasture land, that is when the 20-foot reduced agricultural setback would kick in. And that would be inclusive of the 15-foot screening buffer. So you would have 5 additional feet there. And, I think I skipped it. Thank you. During the public, the previous meeting we had, a resident brought up some flooding concerns. We thought it would be appropriate to include the most current FEMA flood map for the area, showing the floodway in pink, which cuts through the intersection of Rye Road and Upper Manatee River Road. There is a small section, a protrusion, that gray of flood zone A that does protrude into the site, but it drains towards that northeast corner. And Denise Greer is available to provide any more information for questions on stormwater and flood risk here. And this is the most pertinent photo that she believes showed the conditions at the site. This is a photo facing west along Upper Manatee River Road, taken at the intersection of Upper Manatee River Road and Rye Road. Those roofs that we can see are the existing Riverwind subdivision, which is on the north side of the property. This shows the condition of after the release of floodwaters from Lake Manatee Reservoir following the Hurricane Ian in 2022. It shows the flooded roadway. The positive aspects that we're considering here is that the project is consistent with the nearby development patterns from agriculturally zoned lands transitioning to PDR. The proposed density is within the range of acceptable densities. The on-site wetlands are proposed to be preserved. The minimum open space is met. The public facilities are either in place or existing or proposed to be. And the amenity center, as proposed, provides an opportunity to promote a neighborhood identity. The negative aspects we identified in this project is that the project is subject to rainfall flooding. The proposed single-family development may be incompatible with the agricultural uses that are adjacent to it. The residences next to the thoroughfares may be subject to negative impacts from that traffic. The proposed lots are significantly smaller than what is already allowable in the A zoning that exists there as now. And we do consider it a negative aspect that we're not tying into a pre-existing interconnection tie to the southwest to Deltiera. But in order to mitigate that, we feel that the proposal has mitigated all of those negative factors in that the the appropriate stormwater system will be required to mitigate the flood risk. The specific approval, which suggests that the alternative designs for the agricultural setback appears to provide sufficient buffering. A notice to buyers will be provided, informing them of the potential activities and of the neighboring agricultural properties. The roadway buffer appears that it would be mitigating the issues with traffic and glare, noise. The proposed lot sizes are comparable with other PDR projects in the vicinity, and the GDP does propose the interconnection tie towards future development to the northwest. In conclusion, staff finds that with the proposed stipulations and the alternative designs provided with the specific approval, the project it complies with the policies of the comprehensive plan and the applicable requirements of the LDC.
Thank you. So we have two commissioners on the board for questions for staff, Commissioner Satcher and Van Austin Bridge. Commissioner Satcher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So going back to the picture of the water after the release. So as we're looking at that picture, am I correct that on the top left-hand side of that shot where it's dry, that's the land that we're speaking of that would be developed by this project. Is that correct?
Correct. The top left across the street from those existing roofs.
Top left. So, and similar to what the applicant said, when you're looking at those floodwaters, that's not on the land that's coming forward before us. And then obviously they would have to take care of any additional flooding. I mean, this is flooding from a release from a dam, but still, they shouldn't be exacerbating anything on that, correct? I mean, they have to take care of the stormwater on their site.
It's correct from my perspective, but I believe Denise Greer can provide more context.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, what was your question?
We're just looking at that picture looks scary, right? But actually what's coming before us, the project in front of us, is the land that's dry. It's not the land that's flooded. Just making sure we're not you know, that I'm understanding that correctly. What was
Correct,
presented
you
by-
are. And if you want to go to the other, so this is the FEMA flood map. So you can see that the floodwaters are contained pretty much in the ditches and the existing wetlands on site.
Right.
And their entrances, both on Upper Manatee and on Rye Road, will be outside of those floodwaters.
Okay.
One will line up across the street from the development to the north, which in the other picture, Chelsea, you can see is where those rooftops are.
Yeah, so on the FEMA one, I'll just, you know, we don't have an outline there of the actual property, but we saw it earlier. I mean, we're on the open space to the left there. That is not in the purple or the pink is where we're talking, is where this particular project is at.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, and then we don't have concerns about the two exits, one onto Upper Manatee and one onto Rye, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I agree with the applicant as far as, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with this area, and I don't see any heavy ag taking place there. It's a beautiful area, so I hate that about it. And then I just wanted to just kind of put a bug in the ear of the commission that moving forward, you know, this is coming forward, and we have other projects that are approved and building across from Gene Witt. There are already, you know, people are living there, and then farther north we have a really large project. So we do need to start looking at, you know, what we can do as far as each one of these units is going to be paying in impact fees. We need to make sure that some of that money plus, because we know how it is, goes into traffic, you know, getting rid of traffic congestion on Rye Road. So it is an issue. But this project coming forward at less than 3 homes per acre and inside of every boundary that we have, I don't have any further objections or questions at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm next on the board. Leaving that map up right there, obviously, we're not at a site plan at this time, but going forward, my question is will there be an opportunity? Well, first of all, I guess my question might be for the applicant. Is it going to be a gated community, and is there an opportunity for us to create, sort of building on what Commissioner Satcher said, talking about traffic and connectivity? This seems like an ideal location for us to try and work with the developer to have some sort of a road that connects Rye and Upper Manatee. Will there be that opportunity?
I can clarify that the two proposed accesses are indeed gated.
They are gated.
And if you like, I can turn it over to the applicant.
What about neighborhood connectivity?
So there is one neighborhood tie that was pre-existing in Deltiera to the southwest, Rose Glen Drive, that was stubbed out, that is not being tied into. But this proposal is including a different potential inter-neighborhood tie to the northwest, to what is now more of the Reagan family's land, which might be potential development later.
Commissioner Satcher, this is your district, right? Okay, I won't push too far into it, but you see where I'm going with this, right?
Actually, technically, it may be
The Boz district?
Commissioner Boz now, but I'm very familiar with this area.
Okay,
so,
I mean, it impacts your district. You see where I'm going.
as far as that connection.
Right, I mean, if you could connect Upper Manatee and Rye, we can't force things on folks, right? But always happy to work with developers where we can. So my next question then is, if you go to your negative impacts, I think, negative aspects. So, I mean, I think we've gotten a little presumptuous with some of these. So the first one is the project is located in an area subject to flooding by rainfall. I thought we just clarified that wasn't the case.
That is from Stormwater's information that was provided to me. Denise, might you provide more info?
Yeah. So during rainfall events, the existing wetlands and the ditches will have localized flooding. And that was shown on the FEMA map. If we go back to that map, Chelsea.
Yep.
So the light gray, the bluish, so that's the localized flooding from the rainfall events.
Okay.
And the ditches do tie into other ditches off-site eventually.
through their own stormwater engineering and plan, can we engineer a solution to that, is my question?
They can, and I'll let
They,
Strickland
right.
speak to that, but I also believe that they're not proposing any wetland impacts.
Right?
Correct.
So those areas will be left in their natural state. So I imagine they will continue to receive flooding from the rainfall events.
Which would not have a negative impact then?
Correct.
Okay, so if we go back to negative aspects, kind of brings me back to that again. Why is that considered a negative aspect if they're not planning to touch the wetlands and it's not going to, to me, it seems like it's not going to have a negative aspect. You see what I'm saying?
I understand.
Okay.
There are adjacent roads that these residents will be on that do have flooding and known flooding, but they do have ways to avoid those flooded areas.
Okay. Bullet point 3, residences adjacent to thoroughfares. I thought that was a positive aspect, and then it showed up as a negative aspect. It says potentially negative impacts related to light, glare, noise, and pollution. I guess I need clarification on that.
This is the standard interpretation whenever a residence is next to a major thoroughfare, and then that is the purpose of the roadway buffer is to reduce those impacts on future potential residents.
Okay. And then proposed lots are significantly smaller than, sorry to take your negative aspects to task here, but they all sort of jumped out at me. Proposed lots are significantly smaller than what is allowed in adjacent properties with A zoning districts, but their density is less than the allowable, right? They're coming in well under the allowable. They're leaving 25% open space. They're leaving the wetlands intact. I'm not sure what the negative aspect of having the smaller lot sizes is. I think it's a positive because we're leaving more open space, we're leaving more wetlands intact, we're increasing permeability. I mean, I just need an explanation as to why that's a negative.
The existing zoning, if it were to be subdivided without rezoning, would require 5-acre lots or larger.
Sure.
So if that would be the desire of the neighborhood and the potential residents moving in and looking for homes in this area, that product wouldn't be available. Instead, the more standard PDR sized lots representative of the PDR zoning are provided.
Okay, but it's literally everything around this is PDR. Their future land use is PDR. I'm not sure where that is even an option, to be honest.
Commissioner, excuse
Ma'am.
me. Sorry. In general, we pointed what are. Sorry, my name is Rosina Leider and has been sworn. In general, we pointed what is not exactly what is in the area or according to the current zoning. However, all these aspects has been mitigated and is comparable with all the developments that we have around Del Tierra and Rye Ranch, and across the street has similar lot sizes. All the potential impacts for stormwater could be mitigated, but it's a reality. It's in a rainfall area, and they have to design all the stormwater facilities in order to satisfy all the requirements and don't create any impacts.
Sure. Okay, but they will. But I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Okay. My point is that they will. I like your last one. If you want to end on a positive, I totally agree with the last negative aspect. So we are aligned on that one. Commissioner Cruz, you're next on the board, sir.
I don't have any questions, right? I just want to point something out. I know it's not deliberation, but if what you guys are implying, maybe I'm misinterpreting, is about the gated entryways and the convenience of having effectively a thoroughfare between these two roads through the middle of a neighborhood. That's going to be unnecessarily heavily used for no reason. I get the once every 100 years when a hurricane hits and you can cut that corner, but Rye gets pretty busy. We need to fix Rye, but you're just going to have cars whipping through there. We're dealing with the exact same thing on Waterline right now, based on the same roundabout at the bottom of Rye and 64, and we're trying to fix it to make it no thoroughfare traffic. So maybe there's something to say. The convenience still is in the unlikely limited out time where that gets flooded because of a hurricane. We can call them and say, hey, do you mind cracking those gates open for us? Then we have a thoroughfare, but I wouldn't make it a requirement to ungate their neighborhood for the sake of allowing through cars, if that's what you guys were implying.
I wasn't necessarily saying that. I mean, I just literally the slide before it showed the intersection flooded out, and I'm looking at the map thinking that would resolve that issue.
Understood. I'm trying to get people to stop driving through people's neighborhoods. We're dealing with it at Twin Rivers. We're dealing with it on Waterline. I don't want to start making a stipulation.
Yeah, I'm a backroads guy. All right, I don't have anyone else on the board for discussion, correct? Okay, we'll open this up to public comment. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forward to address the board regarding item number 12 on today's agenda? Anyone like to speak on item 12? All right, seeing no one coming forward, we will close public comment. We can go to questions for the staff or the applicant or the public, none of whom got up to speak, but you can still ask them questions. All right, no one's on the board for questions. Then are there any closing statements? Ms. Freeman, from staff? None from staff. Mr. Osborne, closing statements.
Mr. John Osborne, we are happy to open up that gate. Obviously, the fire department shows up, sheriff's office shows up, and that kind of thing. And the kind of positive planning of roadways and things like that. That's something that if we hear at a pre-app level, that's something we certainly could entertain. But when you're this far along, it's really tough to change everything like that. But we respectfully request approval today of what we've proposed for you today.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Cruz. Oh, we're there, sir. That was the rebuttal, and so now we're in deliberation.
I never know around here. All right. Look, this is future land use. You have 3. They could build 3 units, 3 houses per acre. They're building less than that. They're not touching the wetlands. They're doing what they're asked to do based upon the future land use rights of this property. I live off Upper Manatee. I like the big green space, but I'm not a hypocrite. I approve stuff in front of other people's houses in their green space. They're conforming to everything we want. They're not asking for crazy stuff and all these stipulations and let me have double dens. They're doing what they're allowed to do with their property. I can't fault that just because it's near my house. Knock yourself out. I think this is going to be a nice project and a nice part of town. We do need to fix Upper Manatee. We do need to fix Rye. It's going to be a pain on those smaller roads until you get to the roads we are building. We're widening Lorraine. We're widening the north-south part of Upper Manatee. That should hopefully ease some congestion because you'll get rid of some of the backup on those side roads to make this a little better. That's on us, though. I see absolutely no problem with this project.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Satcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll just echo what Commissioner Cruz said. They're not hitting the wetlands. The density is in that area. It's probably the best we could ask for moving forward, with it being west of Rye. So, I didn't make the motion just because I do understand that Rye needs help, and so, but really that's on us. So we need to get on that. And of course, they just finished a project there about 3 years ago. It might have been longer ago than that. Time goes by fast. To make the road better, but it's still, it's not up to standard or where we need to be. But can't put all that on this particular property, I don't believe at this point, especially when they're less than 3 homes per acre. So I'll be voting for it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. There's no one else on the board for discussion or deliberation. We've held public comment. A motion has been made to approve the project by Commissioner Cruz. That's been seconded by Commissioner Ballard. And we can cast our votes at this time. Commissioner Ron, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir.
How do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, Commissioner Ron votes yes. And that means that it passes unanimously, Madam Clerk, by a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Baugh absent. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 13.
Item 13, LDCT 2305, Ordinance 23-62, County-initiated Land Development Code text amendment to add car wash, full car wash, and car wash self-service as special permit uses in the neighborhood commercial zoning districts. And we have Bill O'Shea for staff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Again, for the record, Bill O'Shea with staff here to present this Land Development Code text amendment for you. Could we go to the PowerPoint, please? It's a short presentation. So the request before you today is to allow self-serve and full-serve car washes in the neighborhood commercial zoning district. Currently, only incidental or car washes that are associated with a convenience store or a gas station are allowed in the NC zoning district. The proposed changes, it modifies Table 4.3 to allow car wash full and self-service in the neighborhood commercial zoning district through the special permit process. So by making this change, we're not allowing this use by right. This will have to go through the special permit process. It is one public hearing with a hearing officer where the public can come out and speak their concerns about locating a gas station at in a neighborhood commercial zoning district. Neighborhood commercial zoning districts are subject to commercial locational criteria. I believe for these car washes, they would be the small commercial development, which would require them to be within 800 feet of a node. And it also adds a requirement to Section 53110 to ensure that the central vacuum is located as far away from residential uses as possible. One of the things with car washes today is, which in my opinion is a positive, is the vacuum area itself does not generate the noise. The suction's already on. It goes to a central vacuum, so all of those vacuum areas are hooked into one vacuum. So you don't have the constant on and off of the motors. It's going all day long. So by locating that unit as far away from residential uses, we are mitigating for any potential noise. I did want to talk to you a little bit about some of the discussion at Planning Commission. I was not here for that meeting. It seemed that there was discussion on water quality, water conservation, and what was the third thing? Oh, and the need for additional car washes in the area. I believe one of the public speakers had mentioned the consumptive use and said that approximately 70 gallons of water was required for each wash. Well, that may be true, but a good percentage of that water is reused. It's filtered and it's reused for next washes. The only part of the car wash, I believe, that uses clean water would be the preliminary and final rinse. Everything else is recycled. There was some concerns about runoff and getting off site. They're all designed to collect the water and recirculate that. And if you look on the internet, you will see that washing your car in a driveway would actually use more water, approximately 100 gallons. You have soaps, possible chemicals running down the driveway, getting into the stormwater pond, potentially impacting the biological treatment of that facility. So I don't think that those were real concerns. I think that those were all mitigated for, but they weren't necessarily discussed at the meeting. And as far as the need goes, this is a policy decision for the board, so you do have the discretion to decide whether or not you feel this is an appropriate use for the NC zoning district. Can we go back to the PowerPoint, please? So this is the first of two required public hearings. There's no action required today, and in staff's opinion, the request can be found to be consistent with the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan and in accordance with the Land Development Code. Now, I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Cruz is on the board for questions. Sir?
I don't have a question. This is pretty straightforward. It's a yes or no. I don't have a ton of questions on this. This is right up there with putting car dealerships and heavy manufacturing. Again, we said this morning. If we're rewriting comp plans and land development codes and future land use, we can have that discussion. Nobody is having a hard time finding a place to put a standalone car wash. I mean, there may be 6 of them getting built in like a 3-mile radius of my house. There's 3 of them between the interstate and Lakewood Ranch Boulevard on State Road 64. People have zoning for it. There's a reason why the ancillary car washes behind gas stations make sense in neighborhood commercial, because people don't go there for the car wash. They go there for the gas and the retail. That's neighborhood commercial use. That's something you go to on a weekly basis or more. Yeah, I just feel like we're trying to cram more of something that nobody seems to have a problem with. This is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. If it existed, we wouldn't have 50 standalone car washes, coming up on an annual basis. I don't get it. I think there's better uses for neighborhood commercial. I've complained in the past about the mixed use density bonus, saying people aren't building real neighborhood commercial stuff to allow for walkable services. I'd like to see people better utilize our neighborhood commercial and put real things in there. But car wash, in my mind, is not one of them. I don't think this qualifies as neighborhood commercial just because people came up with the same argument they did with self-storage. I need to be very close to a house because they'll come up with whatever metric of people only drive 5 minutes from their house to wash their car, or they'll wash it in their driveway and use 100 gallons of gas. I don't think that's fundamentally true. So I personally don't like this. I don't see why we need to find more zoning for an asset that, if anything, we're getting kind of inundated with in the first place.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Satcher. Nope, you're on, Commissioner Satcher.
Yeah, I mean, this is not anybody. This is tough to make, black and white and a big, huge, I'm 100% this way. But I mean, when I used to drive Rye Road to 64, there weren't as many car washes as there are now, apparently. They were just putting some in. And then now driving 301, there's one, there's Take 5. And they do a good job, but yeah, there you go. But that's it. So I could see how if there's the need there, but there's not enough need to pay for a Class A office space to be able to, make that financially viable option for them. So, I mean, I can see why this is here. Of course, I don't want to see a whole, have neighborhood after neighborhood, and they stuck one right in the middle of, next to my house. So I understand we might end up with some upset in the future. So I'm not a huge fan, but I could see at least why it's in front of us. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bill, I kind of agree with both of them. Can you just help me with what's the need? The need?
Well, I believe we did have one developer that asked to do a car wash, and when staff looked at it, we feel that initially car washes were community serving. However, as they're taking off today, we feel like people want them close to their house, and I wouldn't think that there would be as great of a need if the developer didn't think that there was a need and they were going to make money at that location. So we felt that, like gas stations, maybe a car wash could be allowed subject to a public hearing so that we could take neighbors' concerns into consideration. It wasn't just because you're in NC you get it. You have to go through a process, and we felt that it might be logical to do so. And as I had described, it has to meet locational criteria. So even if you have a neighborhood commercial chunk of land that doesn't meet no locational criteria, the car wash can't locate there. So that was staff's thinking.
So you're a smart guy. This is why I asked you that. Now you got me back on the fence again. Okay. We don't have anyone on the board for discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Commissioner Ron, please chime in, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think the reason this came about is that as a neighborhood service, if there was a specific site which they're referring to, and this has got to go through special permit, so it's not every time somebody comes with one that you're going to get it. But I think where this is coming from is that if there's a site that might not be able to fit a gas station or a convenience store with gas pumps or something like that, and there wants to be a car wash there standalone, today it's an ancillary business, so you would not be able to utilize that site for a car wash unless you have a gas station or a convenience store with gas pumps. So I think this is how this came about, is this could be a neighborhood service, but under the current zoning, under neighborhood commercial medium, you have to have a gas station attached to a car wash. So I think that's what staff is looking at here to support this. And if it fits, if a neighborhood would want this and it fits and it meets the standard requirements, location requirements, special permit, everything they got to go through, this is why we have zoning changes. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. No one's on the board. We'll open this up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and comment on item number 13 on today's agenda, car washes? All right. Seeing no one, we will close public comment. And there's no action needed. This was highly stressful for no action needed. Okay. I've been really racking my brain. All right. So no action needed on item number 13. We will then move on to item number 14. Denise Greer.
Item number 14, LDCT 2212, Ordinance 23-63, formerly known as 22-68, County-initiated Land Development Code Text Amendment, Amenity Centers. Bill is here, but this is just to request to hold the second public hearing prior to 5 p.m.
Ms. Shank, can we hold the next three to get 14, 15, 16 together? Maybe 17 as well?
Yes, as long as she reads each one to the record, and then
Okay.
you vote separate.
Let's do that, Denise.
Yes.
Item number 15, LDCT 2306, Ordinance number 23-64, County-initiated Land Development Code Text Amendment, General Design Requirements for Plan Development Site Plan. Again, this is to request and hold a second public hearing prior to 5 p.m. Item 16, LDCT 2305, Ordinance 23-62, County-initiated Land Development Code Text Amendment to add car wash, full service, and car wash, self-service as special permit uses in the Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District. Again, to request to hold second public hearing prior to 5 p.m. Excuse me. Item 17, LDCT 2304, Ordinance 23-61, County-initiated Land Development Code Text Amendment, Resort Cottages. Again, request to hold second public hearing prior to 5 p.m.
Okay. I think I'd like to do these verbally instead of using the screen. Everybody good with that?
You going to do public comment?
We will, but then we're going to do this verbally.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. Were you going to do public comment on all? Could we do public comment on all?
We're going to hold public comment
Okay.
altogether.
All right, that
Yes,
was
sir.
What I was trying to say.
Commissioner Ron somehow is on
Sure.
the board. How did that happen?
I'm off the board.
Okay. Somehow you ended up on the order to speak. Okay. Then we're going to open this up to public comment. So we're at 14, 15, 16, and 17. If you would like to come forward to address the board on any of those three items, this is your opportunity now. We're opening these up, all three up to public comment, all four up to public comment. Okay. Seeing no one, we're going to close public comment. And verbally, we will go through these to vote on each of them. Item number 14, we're entertaining motions. We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Cruz and seconded by Commissioner Bearden. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, it passes unanimously by a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Baugh absent. Item number 15, we're entertaining motions. Motion to approve by Commissioner Cruz has been seconded by Commissioner Bearden. All in favor of item number 15, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, item number 15 passes unanimously by a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Baugh absent. Item number 16, entertaining motions. Item number 16 is a motion to approve by Commissioner Cruz and seconded by Commissioner Bearden. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Clerk, item number 16 passes unanimously by a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Baugh absent. Item number 17, entertaining motions. A motion to approve by Commissioner Cruz, seconded by Commissioner Bearden. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Madam Clerk, item number 17 passes unanimously by a vote of 6-0 with Commissioner Baugh absent. All right, Commissioner comments. I think we start with 3 today, actually. So I would just remind everybody that the DeSoto Parade is Saturday night. It starts at 6 p.m., I think. Well, you might want to look that one up. But it's definitely Saturday night, and I hope everybody can make it. It's a fantastic time. It's the largest parade, second largest parade in the Southeast United States behind Gasparilla, and it's always a great, fun, free family event. District 4. District 4, do you have any commissioner comments? Commissioner Ron?
No, sir, but I would like to talk about maybe a future work session.
I apologize?
I don't have any commissioner comments, but I would like to talk about a future work session at some point.
We'll do that now. So this will be all-encompassing commissioner comments.
Yes, sir. I would like to have a future work session with code enforcement.
Okay. He wants a code enforcement work session.
Doesn't have to be a long one, just get the guys in there.
Yes, sir. Any other comments, sir?
No, sir.
All right. District, what do we use here? 5 is not here. 6? No comments. 7?
Yeah, just real quick. I had a great town hall last night at Braden River Library. Lots of diverse comments and questions. Next one is May 10th up at Palmetto Branch Library. So hope to see you there.
Yes, sir. District 1? Nothing. No comments. District 2?
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other new business, commissioners? All right. We're adjourned.